Big Show with Jim Check and Ian Burns.
I'm Jim Check, and that's Ian Burns. We're vesting it up again, eh? Two vests better than one, but Ian didn't get the memo, obviously, or I didn't. We were all matchy yesterday in the Blues today. Well, we got Dan Albas, so I don't want. I'm sure he's probably going to wear blue, eh? What are you going to bet that he's wearing a blue tie?
Is he a blue tie guy? I don't know.
I think he's mostly.
It's incredibly ironic, though, and I'm feeling a little bit nervous now because I'm wearing Argentina's colours and you're wearing England's colours. We don't want Argentina to win, do we?
I didn't even know, so there you go. We got a big show. And then this one is a puzzling one. What's Mark Carney up to? Like, I mean, we say that on the show all the time. What literally is that guy up to? Like some strange stuff going on, like literally strange. And it's, he really seems to be, a couple of things connected to the Democrats very, very closely. And also, he seems to want to become Donald Trump as well. Remember the first day of office signing that executive order that doesn't exist? You know, like, and then calling his wife, Diana Fox Carney, the First Lady of Canada, doesn't exist. And now he's hired a chief operating officer, kind of like a chief of staff, like Chris Willis there. Like, what's literally going on? And she's an American. She was like really close. She was high up in the Hillary Clinton campaign, like top dog. And she's already committed an ethics violation in Canada. Yahoo, right? What?
There are even more similarities, though. Like, Carney even created his own dance.
Yeah, he got his own dance. Trump has the, which swept the world, actually. You know, like they were doing the Trump dance all over, the YMCA dance all over the world. Carney's not catching on, though. It's just kind of awkward, right? You know,
I mean, especially when the aforementioned First Lady of Canada performs, you know, when she puts her whole body into it. It's hard, isn't it? It's a hard sell.
So it's kind of like the Temu dance, too. It's just like the cheap version. It's like the really knockoff version. And everything seems to be done on the cheap, for sure. We've got some feedback we want to share before we get into it, though. Feedback here. Somebody says we're doing great work, and they appreciate our blunt honesty. There you go. Hold the line. And I like this one here. You guys have a vested interest in Canadian politics. I take that. That's good. Good stuff. Good comedy. Somebody like Franco on there. Franco was great yesterday too, right? And somebody asked. Somebody said we're going to add if we're going to add the vest to the merch store. I haven't asked, and I said I promise we're going to have this up by the end of the week. So I talked to our people and put some pressure on. So apparently it's built. It just needs the button to be pushed, right? Just that. So we got lots to talk about though. But I do want to say one thing. We're going to kick it off. We're going to bookend this. Twitter. It's the official launch in 2006. On this day, and right now in Canada, media. Having a tough go. We got lots to talk about in the media space today. So, but Twitter is literally the platform, or X now. I like the name X better than Twitter. Twitter always seemed to be kind of goofy to me, like a bird. And X is one of the, it is the town square. It is for the world, really. Like if a world event is happening, like where do you go? Right, first place. If something big is happening in the world, where do you go? Are you going on Al Jazeera, or where are you going? You're going to X, right? You're going to X.
CTV.
CTV. And
I will say something because I have all the apps. I've said this a number of times. I'm such a masochist that I have all the apps: CTV, CBC, all the rest of it, and also in the UK and stuff like international ones. And whenever something happens, it's usually the same order. Sky News, which is an American-owned British company, usually they're first by a long way. Then it sort of trickles through, and it's BBC. Then it's right at the end, CTV, and then about 3 hours after that, it's CBC. Like coming in with the news about 6 hours later. So
well, they got a filter.
That was a joke. I don't check CTV or CBC for my breaking news.
Hey, they filter it through the the major information office there, as the Rosie Barton takes a look at it and makes sure that it's fits all the boxes first as they filter it
Well,
through.
To make sure that none of it is true, as she said herself at times.
I do want to share this clip from JD Vance because I say in Canada, the independent media is who's getting it done on both sides of the border. I mean, independent media down in the States. Nick Shirley has embarrassed the national media, and CBS actually picking up the mantle and doing some of that work after Nick Shirley embarrassed the heck out of them. But I want to play this clip here from JD Vance.
From citizens and journalists have come from people like Nick Shirley. It was a 22-year-old kid. A 22-year-old kid who had the audacity to go to the people who were receiving your tax dollars and ask questions. Something, frankly, it would have been great if the national media showed a little bit more interest in. But I just want to say to all of you, for caring about this issue, for being engaged in this issue, for sending tips in to our fraud task force, thank you. Because a bit from citizens.
Anyway. Yeah, in Canada, we have the same thing going on. The people doing the hard work, the heavy lifting. It's not CBC, it's not CTV, it's not Global. The heavy lifting done by Sam Cooper, who literally puts his life on the line. Holly Dona Blacklocks, who gets just treated by the government like, like she's yellow journalism, they call it, stuff like that, And, like the guys like Franco Terrazzano from Canadian Taxpayers Association, Chris Sims from there. And, there's quite a few more. And, and we spread that news, right? Like we're like an amplifier for it. We try to do some of that news ourselves. We're going to start going down to the United States too. We're doing the best we can with lots of interviews as well. And it is independent media where truth is spread for sure. And if you can spread this show far and wide, like right now, we're going to push on this bonuses thing here for Canada Post. We got a reply. We're going to save that all for Dan Albas because he's going to come on the show and we're going to talk about Canada Post and the bonuses. So we'll save all that for when Dan Albas shows up. But we're going to start off with the economy. No big surprise. No shocker here. Bank of Canada keeps key rate at 2.25 yet again. I mean, they don't really have any room to maneuver. They have no room to maneuver. If they go up, they might as well stick a fork in it and call it done because the Canadian economy, and we're going to show you lots of evidence later, is suffering. Like it is sputtering, like literally sputtering. And you know what I mean? Like there's not much there. If they lower rates, I mean, that's what they should do. They should have done that a long time ago. But right now, the Canadian dollar kind of like hanging on to, right? Like, I mean, there's some stuff going on that they have lost control really of the plot. And they don't have a lot of room to move. And it's all about energy. If they did something on the energy side that wasn't anti-energy, maybe we could see some better reaction from the Canadian economy. But like still,
although having said all that, he points all that out. Or I said he. I mean the committee, the governing council, or whatever they call themselves. They point all of this out. They talk about the weaker dollar. They talk about that. They basically explain what you just said in their ridiculous terms. And they're just like a caged wild animal, and there's nothing they can do. And yet at the same time, it's all about how it looks a lot brighter now, and the Canadian economy has shown signs of, renewal and strength, and there's quite a bit of optimism going forward. But it's a strange thing to put in there because they're basically saying there's nothing we can do. Like we're passengers here, but things are looking all right. So there you go, Canadians.
I would say, I shouldn't say checkmate. They're in check. And just like if we move over here, checkmate. If we move over here, checkmate. If we move, they're stuck. They're literally stuck. They're powerless. And they did that to themselves, like with bad policy, like terrible policy, right? And why he still has his job surprises me. When he told Canadians a couple of years ago, go ahead and take that mortgage out. No worries. And we're not going to be raising interest rates in the foreseeable future. And then they raised them 19-fold. And right now we're seeing massive cracks in the housing market and massive cracks in the Canadian financial wellness. And we're going to show you some of that evidence as well. And like this podium talk, this virtue signaling has got Canada in so much trouble. This arrogance, and we're going to show you some of the provinces that are more arrogant and more on ideology have suffered the worst for sure. Right? The more you got into ideology, the more your citizens paid the price. And we're going to show you that evidence here. in the next little while. But in the U.S., it's a different story. It's a different story there. And then, you know, like this is the New York Fed president there, Williams, saying inflation has peaked. It's all about energy. Like, I mean, we drive that point home here on this show all the time. It's all about energy. Get some energy out there. Like, they have a completely different mandate down there. Like, if you want to look at just slogans, drill, baby, drill, means as much energy as possible. In Canada, new taxation scheme, it's going to create a whole industry. We're going to show you that, some of that as well. They're basically calling a taxation scheme in Canada a new industry we should be proud of. We're leading the world in a new taxation scheme. What country trumpets a new taxation scheme as a new industry? And what fool believes it? Here's Kevin Warsh testifying, and you know, like a lot of people in the past that are in that seat there didn't like a hot economy, and it sounds like Kevin Warsh isn't going to be so. This is James Thorne, an economist here in Canada as well. So let's play that clip from Kevin Warsh.
I'm gratified that this is our third central bank in the United States, and it's more than 100 years old, and hopefully we've learned some lessons. One of those lessons is ensuring that we are as focused, at least as focused on the real economy as we are the financial assets and what's happening on Wall Street. This committee had long committed to a 2% inflation target. That is our resolution. That's what I'm here to say and double down on. But as we discuss privately, I'll say publicly, my broader definition of price stability is a change in prices such that households and businesses don't have to worry about it, don't have to think about it. And the test today about whether inflation is too high is represented by this committee. Inflation is the dominant set of questions because it matters to households and businesses. I'd like the change in prices to be such that no one's talking about it. That was a definition from the Volcker era, and I dare say the Greenspan era. It should suggest to you that as I sit here today, this Fed will deliver price stability consistent with what we have been saying for several years, which is inflation shall be delivered at a level of 2%. That broader price stability objective is still one in the back of my mind, and we'll see whether there's further reforms to be had.
So they're not as worried about like an economy that runs hot, because if the economy runs hotter down in the United States, which it is running way hotter down there than it is here, their economy is running actually fairly well. A lot of it driven by AI. AI is also a disinflationary tool. It's a productivity tool. It's an increase in productivity. It's a disinflationary force. And I mean, there is some inflationary forces on some of the things like on chips and stuff like that, but the output is typically disinflationary. So that economy will run way hotter than Canada. And the sad thing is we used to be connected at the hip, like literally connected at the hip. And this is not just Trump. Go look at the charts. Ian and I have showed these charts too many times. You go back and look at them from the past. It was 2015 that we disconnected. Our policies changed. Our policies changed. One of the big things they embrace that we refuse to embrace is fracking. Right? Magic of fracking. They did, like, look what they did to their economy. They're a net exporter of energy with fracking. Quebec's sitting on
the largest producer in the world.
Completely different. And that's through Biden, and that's through Obama, and that's through Trump. It's completely different. And in Canada, as remember the old, like our show is based on like some nods to some of the greats and throughout history, some of the solid stuff. And Ed Sullivan, the really big show. This is a really big show. And the other one is like I always like is Paul Harvey. And now for the rest of the story. Here's Canada. Insolvencies in these provinces, up 37% on higher interest rates. And that says an economist. If you put up the next slide there. And which province has the highest insolvency? That'd be British Columbia. British Columbia, 36.7%. This is from, like, they're using 2019 as a benchmark. 36.7% in British Columbia. 23% up in Manitoba. 19 or almost 20% in Ontario. And that's compared to 2019. And they also recording the highest level of consumer debt. High interest rates, household debt, stretched purchasing power, pressured household finances over recent years, pointing to an insolvency rate per 1,000 people in BC that has significantly risen over the level recorded in 2019. British Columbia. British Columbia is in trouble. Like look at the sawmill industry, and we're going to show you something on that too. And look at the national household debt to income ratio, 173 in the final quarter of 2025. For every dollar of income, owed $1.73. Those aren't good numbers. And another mill closed permanently in Prince George today. And this is from an MP or MLA, Sheldon Clare. 300 workers along with families and contractors affected by the closure of Canfor's Northwood pulp mill. How many closures have we talked about? We interviewed the mayor of North Cowichan there when they closed the Crawford pulp mill down there. This has been a disaster. How many interviews have you and I done on forestry? We interviewed Bruce Ralston, the former forest minister, Ravi Parmar, the current forest minister, a couple of people from the industry, Kofi, and then also like a VP of one of the major forestry companies. They all say the same thing. It's the regulation in British Columbia as well too, right? Like, I mean, forestry is doing better in Alberta, and forestry is doing way better in Washington State. There's a problem in British Columbia. When I interviewed David Eby, he admitted it too. He said they got a problem with permitting. Ravi says they're fixing it. Obviously not fast enough, right? Pulp mills rely on feedstock too, right? So if the sawmills aren't providing feedstock, if the sawmills are closing, that means the feedstock is dying out too, right? Like a lot of them get their chips from sawmills. This is huge. These are 300 good paying jobs. These aren't like 300, like Tim Hortons temporary foreign worker jobs. These are 300 family making jobs where you buy a pickup truck and a house and you build your life around. I don't know. Like, I mean, there's too many of these in British Columbia, too many of these across Canada, too many good paying jobs gone. And it's not about, this is the problem. It's not about where we should have the government saving all these industries. What we should do is have the government not killing these industries in the first place. That's the difference, right? Government thinks its role is to get in there and save industries and compromise them. Government's job is to create an environment where they can thrive. That's the mindset shift that needs to happen. Daniel Smith does that. David Eby surely doesn't do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, the Liberals still quiet on the, like, I haven't seen anything on that $13 billion investment by Meta that didn't take any government money in Alberta. Have you seen anything yet? Just silence, right?
Forget about it.
The mindset is completely different though, right? Government should be creating an environment where businesses thrive. That's what's happening in the United States. That's literally what's happening in the United States. They create an environment where businesses thrive, an environment where they want to operate. Canada thinks that everything needs to be a rescue. And once you start rescuing businesses, they don't even compete anymore. Look at Canada Post. We shared all. Look at how badly these corporations run. Look how badly they run. And look at the oligopolies here working in a protected environment, a bubble. The banks, the cell phone companies, the food companies, the dairy cartels, all of these things are working in a government-protected bubble. Well, everybody else can just, pay the price here. And it is the environment that they created, that the sawmill industries, and I've shared this before, there used to be a lot of American companies operating in British Columbia in the forestry sector. They're all left. There was a lot of Canadian companies operating in British Columbia. A lot of them have left too. For where? That's right, Washington State. They're operating just across the border. I bet the trees don't change. You know what I mean? Like with that border, you draw the line. If you step across the border, I don't think the pine trees change, do they? Do you think that Mother Nature said, hey, we're not giving the Americans the same trees as British Columbia? It's the same trees, man. Same trees. Different political climate. Ask yourself why Canfor's down there and Canfor's closing operations here. Canfor said, well, I think we did that story 2 years ago now. Canfor said BC is not an environment we can operate in. I didn't say it, Canfor said it, right? BC, I think they said BC is uninvestable. And David Eby and them just go, meh. And David Eby, there's outstanding requests for David Eby to come on the show. Does David Eby believe in democracy and answering to the public? Does he believe that media doesn't deserve an answer? Because that's the foundation of democracy, answering to the media. They're servants of the people. Our role is to be that go-between, the ones that get to go to the podium and ask them the questions. David Eby's refusing right now. You have to ask yourself why. Dominic LeBlanc here, look at this, Dominic LeBlanc. And where's he? In the most powerful lobby group there is in Canada. At the dairy farmers, the 9,000 dairy farmers coast to coast. I'm pleased to join the dairy producers across Canada at the Dairy Farmers Association. Sorry. I don't know why that's on. He's at the Dairy Farmers of Canada's annual general meeting to thank them for their commitment to producing high-quality dairy and reaffirm our government support. Did you read that last line? And to reaffirm our government support for supply management.
At your expense. You're going to pay for it. You miserable, pitiful plebs are going to pay so that the Liberal Party can have very cordial relations with this pressure group.
Apparently they deserve more than you. Apparently they're more important than you. They got a hell of a lobby group. We had a food professor on. He said it's the most powerful lobby group in Canada. They spend the most per capita in Canada. I think he said $9 per person in Canada. They spend a lot of money lobbying the government. They spend a lot of money lobbying the government to protect their
He
space.
literally, he used the phrase that they control Ottawa, didn't he? That's what he said. The dairy farmers control Ottawa. Quite an astonishing thing for a sober, considered, respectable gentleman, academic, such as him to say. I mean, obviously, he's thought about that a lot before he said it. It's not just a random comment on the internet, He's really thought about that. And
So
that is
9,000
rather shocking.
9,000 dairy farmers are put ahead of 40 million Canadians. And I'm sure it's not the dairy farmers. Like I talked to Renee, there's not all dairy farmers are doing this. Some of them have even spoken out about it, and sure they got punished because they don't like dumping milk down the drain because of supply management. They're literally flushing milk down the drain because of supply management.
There are also complaints, aren't there, about east-west inequality here, unfairness, that the sort of, particularly
Imagine
Ontario
that.
and Quebec,
Imagine
privileged
that, eh?
above Western provinces. Yeah, I mean, imagine that. Who could have predicted that? And that the Liberals would be right at the centre of it. Who could have thought that? Who
So
could have seen that coming?
You pay more for chicken. You pay more for milk. Like I was just down in the United States and got some Tillamook cheese. And I gave some to a couple of friends. And they're just like, this cheese is good. Because, you hear this saying from people, like I think Renee Merrifield was saying, she was sitting around with a bunch of her friends. And it's like, we don't want that lousy cheese from the United States, that, like that inferior product. And then I'm sure in England, there's inferior cheese too, right? Because it's not just the Americans that highlight supply management. It's the United Kingdom as well.
I mean, the thing is as well, it's like, the first thing he says there, more than 9,000 dairy farms that are a cornerstone of Canada's economy in rural communities. Yeah, sure. I think almost everybody in this country is glad that we have a dairy sector and we can get nice fresh milk and all the rest of it. But it doesn't necessarily follow that we should have a sort of quasi-communist economic system when it comes to a commodity this valuable. I was reading the other day, this is not entirely unrelated here, but I was reading the other day another book written by our good friend Václav Smil, Canadian professor. Just a little bit that he wrote about height human height and height differences across the years. And why is it that, for example, the Dutch are so tall? And one of the reasons that Smill outlines here is their consumption of dairy, specifically milk. I think we all agree that it's good to grow. That's good for the bones. Shouldn't we want to make milk as cheap as possible and get it out to everybody? You know, if we have academics like Professor Smill, he literally says in this little essay, he says, if you want your population to be taller, which means healthier, it's sort of a proxy for health, give them milk. Make sure that milk's freely available. So this is like a nutritional issue. This is like a public health issue. This is not just about economics and the sort of filthy side of politics. You could say that this is about the sort of general health of the Canadian people.
Any name saying that Tillamook cheese, I think I'm saying it right now, Tillamook cheese is saying it's all natural and it's really good cheese. Like he's saying it's based in Oregon. That's where I got it. Famous for its award-winning naturally aged cheddars, crafted using simple all-natural ingredients without artificial growth hormone. It's like I literally gave some to friends, and they're just like, "Holy cow, this is!" And I put some of our regular cheese you get out of the store next to it, and they're just like, "This is completely different cheese."
Yeah.
And then imagine, like some of the cheeses from the UK, like some of the specialty cheeses that you get out of there. Like, I mean, not saying we have bad cheese, but just let the market decide. Let the market decide.
There's a good comment here from Johnny Redbone here, who talks about New Zealand, and they had a similar system. They got rid of it, introduced the free market, and then ended up being more profitable. Yeah, that's a really fascinating case study. And if people are actually really interested in this, in the economics of this, I would advise go have a read about what happened in New Zealand. They became like world beaters. It wasn't just a bit more profitable. They literally sort of, they just became monsters in the market. It was comparative advantage. They absolutely dominated. So yeah, there is no argument that I can respect, at least, that says doing this is, this is going to make more milk available or milk more freely available. I don't think so. No, I don't think that's a serious argument.
What Dominic LeBlanc is saying right there is that they will give them a protected environment at your expense.
Yeah. Like bend the rules, bend the system so that it favors them, so that they can have less pressure, less stress, and live an easier life. I mean, everybody in business in Canada would like that to happen. They would like the rules to be bent for them so that they didn't have to worry too much. Everybody would like that, wouldn't they? And in industries as important or more important than the provision of milk and eggs, believe it or not, there are such things. Why this exceedingly rarely used power to craft this system to benefit this one industry or sector, whatever you want to call it? Why would that happen? Think about all the things in life that are as important or more important than milk and eggs, and then ask yourself, is there a system in place to protect that industry or that sector, no matter what, so that they're always looked after?
They take advantage of you because a lot of people have lost the desire to vote because they think it doesn't matter. But like I said, it's like working out. You got to keep exercising your vote, and then it'll show up. The power will show up. These people know how to exercise their vote. They exercise the vote with money. They continue to pour money in it. And they're glad-handing, they're lobbying, they're doing all these things. And they've gained themselves a lot of power in Canada for a select few, again. And who pays the price? There's literally Canadians right now facing a hunger crisis in Canada. And they're protecting it. They're protecting it from getting cheaper milk to people. Like Ian says, like milk is a staple, right? Like milk is a staple. I mean, when you're first born, that's all you drink is milk. Milk is a staple. And any name trying to make me laugh again, like yesterday there. This is, he's saying, if we just add some carbon capture, we could make cheese as good as Tillamook. Why not? Eh?
Well, there's also an interesting comment here from our good friend, Global Traveller, Bill. saying that it's unearned moral superiority to think that the US can't produce great cheeses. What I would say, my only comment there is, whatever it is, within reason, anything on this planet, the Americans can make it something very good, or possibly like world-beating, world-competing. But I would say, on average, your average block of cheese or whatever you get in an American store, not too good. Same with bread. A lot of the bread in the stores is like, what God's name is this thing? You know, it's like it's infamous around the world. It's not just me saying this, but at the same time, I'm certain that there's an American baker somewhere who can produce the finest loaf in the world. But it's I suppose that stereotype about bad American cheese, I think that's more to do with like what's widely available, what the average person gets hold
Mass-produced
of.
stuff, right? Like the Hostess Twinkie,
Yeah.
and saying that you're going to compare a Twinkie to a eclair made by a Paris chef or something, right? Parisian chef. It's damn crazy though, right? Carney though, Carney's middle powers gambit, not serious, but could waste valuable time. That's from the U.S. Deputy Secretary. And they've taken a swipe at Mark Carney's middle power strategy, which the Prime Minister, see, this is starting to come out like that Wall Street story. You know what I mean? It just takes a while, and all of a sudden here's the reaction, which the Prime Minister discussed in Davos speech earlier this year. You know that speech that people, it's just crazy that people like that speech. Elbridge Colby said he and his colleagues are not concerned that this is a serious possibility, but are worried that U.S. allies will waste valuable time, money, and political capital on that distraction. Middle power, he said, don't have a coherent basis for alignment. From our point of view, a collective middle power strategy is based on faulty understanding of international relations. What middle powers? Ian and I talked about it. I think Ian and I have a better grasp of middle powers than Mark Carney. Middle powers. Like Mark Carney, like Canada doesn't qualify to be in the middle power. Just because you can talk at a Davos speech doesn't give you entrance into middle power. Like, what have you got to offer for middle power? Just a speech, a bunch of words you wrote at 2 a.m? That's
True,
it?
as well.
That's it? That's all you have to offer? Just like, well, we have an aircraft carrier and we have, some planes and stuff. Well, Canada's like, we got this speech. He wrote it at 2,
Yeah, I mean, the list of countries that would be ahead of Canada when it comes to claiming to be a middle power, you wouldn't want to know. If you're a Carneyite, if you're a hardcore Carneyite, you wouldn't want to know the sort of countries that, lots of people would put ahead of Canada. For example, I would put Pakistan ahead of Canada, and I think Pakistan is more of a middle power. If we're talking about who's closer
India,
to being middle power,
Pakistan.
Pakistan or Canada. Oh, India's closer to being a great power, I would say. Undoubtedly, much more powerful than Canada.
Saudi
But
Arabia.
Pakistan has nukes. Pakistan has an air force. It has nuclear weapons. It has a very powerful and influential spy agency that operates all around the region and all around the world. Pakistan has, 200 million people? A massive army? Yeah, that's a lot closer to being a middle power than Canada. Oh, I mean, come on, obviously. And then, what else is a middle power? Like, people talk about, like, the Netherlands or something?
Yeah.
The duchies? They've had lots of milk and they've got very tall. But that doesn't make them a middle power. I'm sorry. Having an average height of, like, 6 foot doesn't make you a middle power. It might make you very good at the long jump or something like that. But no, obviously not. You've got to have, like, hard power. If you want to be a middle power, you need hard power. What hard power does Canada have? It does have some kind of economic hard power in the form of oil and uranium and some other minerals and things like that.
The raw materials.
But that's about it.
Yeah, the raw materials,
Yeah,
which we, for some strange reason, don't want to bring to fruition without, like, taxation schemes, which is ridiculous. People
But this is, I must say, we said all this ages ago, so we're not exactly agreeing with Elbridge Colby here. He's agreeing with us, if anything. Although I think maybe we flatter ourselves if we suggest that he watches the show. But this is what I mean. Like, my first reaction to the Davos speech was, there is nobody on this planet who knows even a little bit about geopolitics that is going to be impressed by this, that is going to take this seriously. And sure enough, I feel confident enough to say that that thesis that I put out there right after the speech has been proven true. Academics, foreign policy experts, the likes of this guy, political observers, they've all basically come out and confirmed it. That this is not serious. Nobody's taking this seriously. And he puts it very concisely there. He says they don't have a coherent basis for alignment. In other words, that's a slightly pretentious way of saying they've got nothing in common, really.
No.
Nothing. They don't have the most important stuff in common. They might like to visit Davos together, and they might like to talk about international law or some other sort of abstract, fanciful notions. But they don't really have much in the way of hard power, like hard realities that converge. And they say Ukraine, okay, do you think the Ukraine war is going to go on forever? Like, that is going to end at some point. Then what? Then what else do you have? It's just not the same thing. And then and the geo part of geopolitics is also quite instructive here, isn't it? Look at, get it out. Get it out. Buy your globe and look at it. There has never been a serious alliance that's lasted a long time, that's spread all over the world, especially when you're the founding member, Canada, and the alliance is designed in opposition to the country that you're connected to and have, several thousand miles of border with. Just no, obviously not. So much about it is daft. That's before you even talk about the economics.
And I would say that most of the people that are talking about these middle powers are weak politicians at this point. Keir Starmer, weak politician. Macron, weak politician. Mark Carney is the one.
Sorry, just to interject. You talk about Keir Starmer, and you mentioned the 2 a.m. Davos speech. That little factoid is revealed in that Wall Street Journal article. That Wall Street Journal article also reveals that Keir Starmer pushed back on all this. He's not interested. Keir Starmer wants to stay in bed with the Americans. So it just yet more evidence that this is, it's self-destructive. It undermines itself. Because even the most reliable people that you'd expect to be on your side, like Keir Starmer, that immensely bland human being, even he says, nah, I'm going to go against the consensus on this and I want to stay in bed with Trump. Thank you. Good luck, though.
It starts to make a little more sense if you think that Mark Carney wants to align more with the Democrats, though. So it's anti-Trump stuff and anti-Republican stuff, and he's putting a lot of his chickens in the Democratic coop. But like the Democratic Party in the United States is a mess. It's literally just a mess. It's an absolute mess because they went down the road, and we're going to show you some of that later. I pulled one more quote for Chamath. You got to just remember this, bookmark it. We're going to come back to it. It's going to blow you away. I guarantee it. Trump, though, he just loves to torment. Like he's going to go down in history as the biggest troll there ever is, right? Like he posted this yesterday. He's got a picture of all the Europeans sitting around. And what has he got on the map there?
It's still got the border in place, though, which I find strange. There's still a border with Canada.
He didn't even do Greenland in this one here, so and I think he's got Venezuela, though.
No, Greenland's in there, isn't it?
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Greenland and Venezuela. Yeah, Venezuela and Greenland. And Cuba, for that matter. Hey? What a troll.
Absurd.
Loves the joke, eh? Just keeps it going. Mark Carney, listen to this. They're pumping the tires now. Listen to this, and the media is just like helping. Here, like I said, CBC is going to come out and just like kind of pump the tires. Look at this. Agreement reached on multi-billion-dollar pathways carbon capture and storage project. Mark Carney doesn't even need to edit that. He just like, hey, perfect, thanks CBC, and then he pushes it out. Cutting emissions, catalyzing. Remember the word catalyzing. Is he spelling that right? What is that?
It's a misspelling.
Yeah. Catalyzing massive private investments in clean tech, creating thousands of good jobs. The Pathways project will be the largest carbon capture, utilization, and storage project in the world. Why? Why would it be the largest in the world?
Another misspelling, utilization. That's not how you spell that word in Canada.
There you go. Hey, look at that. But he's supposed to represent Canada, and I don't know, his 20-something there doesn't know how to do these tweets probably in proper Canadian language. But why does Canada have the largest carbon capture utilization storage project in the world? Because nobody else is doing it.
We're so ambitious.
And Brookfield, he should just put underneath. And by the way, I saw this coming and made sure that Brookfield was heavily invested in CCUS. Without Canada, that would have been a massive failure and a massive failed investment. Brookfield would have lost a lot of money on this investment because the United States said, nah, on carbon capture utilization storage. Nah. The rest of the world is like, nah, we just want cheap, reliable energy. Canada, though, on the other hand, is all in. And the only reason that it's going ahead now from the oil field companies is because they found a sucker to pay for it. Who's that sucker? Who's paying for this CCUS? Anybody want to guess? You want to take a stab at it? Who's going to pay for it? That'd be you again. You. That's right. You pay for it. You pay for it. So Brookfield does well. Anthropi does well. You know, they're going to get a return on their investment here. Oil field companies are just like, whatever, right? Like, sure, as long as we're not paying for it. You can pay for it. And Mark Carney can stand there and talk about this catalyzing massive private investments in clean tech, creating thousands of good jobs. Even Martha Hall Finley said this, you know, one of the proponents of this in the past said this is not a time for this anymore. That time has passed. Look at the nice picture CBC used, eh? Look at that picture, CBC. Isn't that just perfect, right? Nicely laid out there, CBC. Hey? Doing their work. Doing the heavy lifting, eh? Doing the heavy lifting. And here's this: South Korea buying more Canadian crude as Iran war disrupts usual supply. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. Do we even think we'll ever get that pipeline built? And it's a win no matter what for Brookfield, because they're going to go ahead with pathways because you're going to pay for it. So Brookfield's going to win regardless. They're going to pay. They're going to make the win on the creation of the whole thing, building it. They're going to make money off of the operation of it. Like it's an ongoing trailer revenue deal for Brookfield. Ongoing trailer revenues. They make it on the build, and they make it on the operation, and it's just and they don't have to create any wealth. They're just taking some, like skin off the calf as it comes down the line. And the Canadian public and the CBC trumpeting it out there. Like I said, they're either going to not say anything or they're going to trumpet it. And they're trumpeting it. As the war continues to smolder there in Iran, South Korea had been turning to Canada for its oil, with East Asian manufacturing powerhouse buying record amounts of crude from its ally across the Pacific. Well, of course they are. Why wouldn't they? But they would buy more if we could get more to the West Coast. Mark Carney is the one that kiboshed the Northern Gateway. We could sell all we could get. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is the time people will buy all we can put out. People will buy all we can put out there. Who's standing in the way of it? Who's standing in the way? Carbon capture technology, David Eby, Mark Carney, Tim Hodgson, boo-birds. Like Mark Carney, basically the king there, saying, well, hey, if you want that, you just got to pay the taxes. You just got to pay the tax man. And the tax man in this case happens to be companies like Brookfield. Like they're literally created themselves a whole tax revenue kind of thing. Industry. They're calling it industry. Nice words, right? It's a taxation scheme. Does it provide value? So the stuff they're putting in the ground, can you go back there and dig it out later and sell it to somebody? It's literally stupid.
But you're talking about there has to be more, there has to be pipelines or whatever to get the oil out there, and there are customers for it. Our good friends, the Japanese, who also were delightfully candid about the car industry one day. They burst a few bubbles when they said, yeah, we only build cars in Canada so we can sell to the US market. Obviously. Like they just said it. Something that needed to be said, though, for some reason. But the Japanese have also said about the oil. They said, all this bad business going on in the Persian Gulf, Gulf War III or whatever it is. obviously that's messing around with our energy supplies, but we hadn't really seriously considered Canada because Canada refused to build the infrastructure to get its oil to Asia. But now that they're talking about it, sure, yeah, we're interested. Like, who'd have thought you have to actually get that oil to a sea somehow? You have to get it to salt water if you want to sell it to the island of Japan or their neighbors.
Maybe we can sell them some carbon capture. Maybe we can sell them that technology. How come nobody's buying it? How come Canada leads in that industry? Like, it's just weird.
Is it going to take the Japanese again? The Japanese are going to have to spill the truth on carbon capture as well. Somebody get the Japanese ambassador on CTV and say, why aren't you interested in this carbon capture? And just listen to him say, because it's a waste of money. We don't have money to throw away.
But Canada obviously has money to throw away. We have nothing but, like, we must have an absolute massive amount of money to throw away. Because here we are. Anita Nand has announced an $125 million financing deal to help Brazil boost its energy facilities. You know, Canada's a net importer of electricity, but we're helping Brazil. And she's calling sustainable infrastructure development in Brazil, the South American country. She says one of Canada's closest partners thanks to its focus on human rights and climate change. Focus on human rights and climate change. Isn't that where they have the Chinese EV factories where there's human rights abuses? Isn't that what that one? Is that the country? The bulk of the
It's also the country where the last climate change festival of freaks was held in the Amazon somewhere, and they chopped down God knows how many trees to clear a path for the VIPs to get there and start talking about not cutting trees down.
How many people think Canada, that's facing a hunger crisis, has $125 million to give to Brazil for climate change? Is Brookfield on the receiving end of this? Is Brookfield creating these facilities? Like, you have to ask now, because it's so blatant these days. Like, who gets the money? Does Canada have the money right now to give to other nations, especially Brazil? Brazil can do their own thing. They're a rich nation too. They got lots of resources.
Yep. Oil producer.
Yeah. Focus on human rights. Go read some of the stories. Go read some of the stories of what's going on with the Chinese EV thing. Go read. They're there. They're on the internet. Read them before this government cleanses the internet.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to wonder, what on earth are we getting in return for this? I mean, there's been some mention made of that Mercosur, whatever it is, that deal that we want with the South Americans to, like a free trade deal with them. Is it possible that this is greasing some palms to make that happen? I don't know. But that's the kind of thing that does happen with these trade deals. But on the face of it doesn't really make sense, does it? Brazil. Like, if anything, shouldn't they be investing in Canada? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, weren't they talking about earlier how we're going to increase trade with the South American countries because they're so strong? You know, Brazil, a global leader in soybeans, iron ore, coffee, sugar, beets, oil. They have 200 million people down there too. They got like almost 3 times our population, 4 times our population almost.
2 of the world's mega cities in Sao Paulo and Rio.
What are we doing? Like, literally, what's Anita Nand doing? Like, she's doling out money like she's Santa Claus. Like, where's she getting it from? You know where she's getting it from? Your kids' future, your grandkids' futures, your kids' futures. That's where she's getting it. It's an endless supply. The Liberals think there's a money tree in the backyard, and it's attached to your pocket. That's where the roots go. That's where the roots dig into your pocket. And that's why you have inflation, right? And the Pathways Project here, the $30 billion, somebody's put it out there, I follow this young lady, $30 billion blackmail to reduce CO2 by 0.017% by 2035. Ian talked about that yesterday. Like, it's insignificant. And it's going to be paid by you. It's 75% going to be paid by the taxpayers, and probably more by the end of it when they reduce royalties and all that. You know, they got accountants that work at the oil field companies. They're just like, yeah. Bingo. Whatever you need to do on that end, we don't care if you fleece the Canadian taxpayer.
I feel like as well, describing it as insignificant doesn't quite. It's not quite an adequate description, is it? It's not just insignificant. It's completely pointless. It's nothing. It's not just a little bit. It's just, you might as well just call it nothing. It's nothing. This makes no difference. This doesn't even make any difference really to Canada's emissions. Never mind the world emissions.
This next one makes no sense at all. Mark Carney, Maya Johnson, American with ties to Hillary Clinton's political operations, and Michael Bloomberg. Her new title, Chief Operating Officer. She's going to run the PMO office there. Why not? That's a role that was never here in Canada before. What's her salary going to be? 6, 7, 8? How many hundreds of thousands of dollars plus expenses, plus trips, plus everything, plus. And Hillary Clinton, like, she's probably one of the best people on this planet, isn't she? Let's put that picture of Hillary up because, like Hillary, her hands are clean, right? She's got the cleanest paws around.
She carries around a certain amount of prestige, doesn't she, from all of her her many victories in public life. She's a serial winner, Hillary Clinton. Very likable, loved by all.
Amazingly likable. Bill is playing as Bill Clinton. I always thought Bill was one of the best presidents, and then and then I think now he just is somebody's bitch. From what he did in the office there, he wanders behind Hillary there, and just does what he's told. He's paying his penance. And he also, I think he's paying some penance for some hot tubs that he had too, as well. Hot tub and Bill.
He looks like a sort of pitiable shell of a man, doesn't he? And he has done for a long time. Doesn't look like he's there anymore. Very strange.
So this is, how do you pronounce it? Maya?
I would say Maya. Yeah.
Maya joined Mark Carney's. I think she joined in around February there. She worked at the DNC there as an assistant to the executive director. And then she worked as campaign and logistical work with Hillary and the gang. And she joined in February 2026 as special senior advisor. And now she's going to be the COO of Carney's political office. The connections to the Democratic Party are troubling in a lot of ways, right? Like even when Donald Trump won the election, was it the next day Justin Trudeau stepped onto the stage there and basically called all Americans, like the majority of Americans, misogynists for not voting for Kamala Harris, that they had the opportunity right there to vote for Kamala Harris, and they didn't do it.
Sort of tells you what Justin Trudeau thinks is important in politics as well, just like all identity. Like there's no policy differences between the two.
But on the other
hand,
one's
a man.
They picked an old white man over Karina Gold, Ruby Dalla, Chrystia Freeland. They had many in the leadership race for the prime ministership of Canada. And who'd they pick? An old white man. Meanwhile, he stood on the stage and said, "How dare you pick an old white man for the United States?" The irony not lost on me. But hey.
Yeah, I mean, James Weist there, I think. I'm not going to say what he just said, but I think that's what a lot of people would say to that. To what he just said. That's the explanation for a lot of people. But yeah, this woman, the point I think that's important, you try and research this woman, there's basically nothing out there about it. It's very, very limited
the best
information.
way for these operatives is shadows, right? Shadow operatives.
And yet, she's, if you've read about Mark Carney's office and the way, his how power works in Mark Carney's world, Mark Carney's administration, or whatever you want to call it, there are a lot of people around him who aren't elected, who have ultimately, in effect, day to day, have more power than ministers. So there's a very good chance that this woman is going to have more power than elected ministers about whom at least we can sort of
run that office.
We can search and we can find things out about them, and we can ask questions and with the expectation of having an interview. And even though we won't get an interview, but there's a certain set of obligations that they have. But this woman is just straight into the shadows. They're not telling us anything about her. I mean, basically the only thing we know about her is, I think, what you've pointed out there, that she's under investigation and has been fined for failing to report was it spending or something, or whatever it is? Yeah, ethics document. So like that's like, I mean, we just know nothing about her, and yet she could be. If what I read about Carney is true in the way that he manages his office, she could have more power than Francois-Philippe Champagne, who should really be the number 2 in the government based on seniority of the jobs. She could be more powerful than him.
I think he's kind of like setting up. I think he really envies Trump, and he's trying to set up a similar type thing where he has all this power, because the president doesn't have as much power as Mark Carney has, really. But just like on the paper, it looks like the president, I mean, is the most powerful country in the world. But Carney wants more power, and I think he's trying to create his own Chris Willis here. It's like where he has his chief of staff, chief operating officer, chief of staff. This person probably is going to be dictating to Francois and Jolie when to shut up and when to talk. Likely going to say to Jolie mostly, "You're done talking." Like, I know if I was in that role, I'd be saying, like, "You're done talking. Like, you don't do interviews, right? You just shut up."
We can understand why he would want to get, operate without them or around them.
Well, I mean, because they're incompetent.
So the ethics commissioner said that she failed to provide all the information required for her conflict of interest report within 60 days.
Yeah.
She still hasn't. You can go on the website. She still hasn't supplied that information. So that's an open, ongoing.
Yeah.
You go on Ethics Canada, Office of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, and search her name. It says it's in progress. But like, who cares? It's a $200 fine.
That's right. Parking tickets are more. There's higher pay. Like, if you park in one of the in-parks parking lot, you're going to pay a bigger parking ticket. It's just the cost of doing business.
Or if you run a red light, you'll pay double probably. You're gonna. There are many, many worse fines out there. Even though this one undermines our democracy. But if you run a red light, if you go through a red light a fraction of a second late, then you might possibly cause somebody concern that's just about to get a green. They might go, "Oh dear, I think that was a red light." So that is obviously worth more of a fine than undermining Canada's democratic system. That does make sense to everybody, I think, doesn't it?
Here's another indictment of the Canadian political environment. An American aerospace manufacturer, praised by Defense Minister David McGuinty in 2025, has revealed it will be moving its operation from Ontario to Poland because its Canadian site, ready for this, is not suited to support future growth. Woodward Inc. said it will complete the closure by August 2027, affecting 165 employees. McGuinty visited the facility in November 2025 and as he hailed Ottawa's commitment to boost defense spending, but Woodward said the location no longer made sense and explained that Poland is well located for serving European customers and its proximity to its key suppliers. Canada can't compete, man. Like, until we get rid of this regulatory burden. Like, it's just, they think that the solution to regulation is more regulation. Bill C-5 is an example of that. I got all these regulations in the way. Well, what we should create is another office. It's Soviet era bureaucracy, Politburo. Like, just add more people. Like, how many people has Mark Carney added? How many Crown corporations has Mark Carney added? How many bankers, I should say, were added to Mark Carney's entourage? And here's another one, a Democratic political operative, like a high-up Democratic political operative. That sends a message to Trump administration as well. What are you doing hiring high-up Democratic operatives for the Canadian government while you're having an adversarial relationship with Canada?
And not just any Democrat, but one attached to the bête noire, the Trump demon ultimate demon, the enemy, the sort of chief of the demonology of the Trump universe, Hillary Clinton. Like, he couldn't have picked a worse person, really, could he?
Might as well reached out and just like slapped the administration and said, "Ha ha! Look at that! We hired one of the demon spawn." Was there a movie like that?
I'd also, just to quickly to go back to this Ontario thing. This is another thing. Like Woodward, they're unusually frank. Like they're not sugarcoating this. They're very like straight up in their press release, and they're saying they're going to Poland for a couple of reasons. But one is the location, and they say Poland is well located for serving European customers and has proximity to key suppliers. Now, remember all that fuss that was made about joining the European SAFE scheme, which is about, and Canada's not really a member. It's, if you actually look at the details, it's like they have a very loose association. They don't have any of the privileges that the big boys have.
We can
but
pay
whatever. A lot of noise has been made about that. Europe's our great friend. We're going to save Ukraine. We're going to have our great alliances with the Europeans. We're going to have defense relationship with them. Except this is the reality, isn't it? Why make it in Canada? If it's for Europe, ultimately, Europe's the customers, the likes of Germany, who are massively expanding their military expenditure, their military budget, as are other countries in Europe. Why bother making it in Canada? Especially if you expect one of your main buyers to be Germany. What are the Germans going to do? If the Germans say, all right, you can bid on this contract to supply us with a new, whatever it is, turbine for our planes or something like that. What are the Germans going to say? What's the first thing the Germans are going to say? You can have this contract if you work with our chemical and manufacturing companies in Germany. Get yourself to Europe, and then we'll supply you with some bits and bobs from Germany, from the industrial heartland. You can buy that off us, then you can finish it off in Poland, then you can give it to us, and then it'll land in Germany, and then we can give it to Ukraine, or whatever it may be, or we can put it on the border with Russia, or something like obviously, like, again, geopolitics rears its logical head and says that this is inevitable, that this kind of thing is going to happen. Because Canada's really, really far away from Europe. It's not in the European mind.
Sure.
There are so many variables, so many factors at play. That's why Canada and the US have been in bed with each other for many decades now. And that's why the Europeans have been concerned with themselves. And there's your Exhibit A. I rest my case.
Are you sure? Oh my. If only Melanie Jolie and Mark Carney had a globe. If only they had a globe. You can go on Amazon probably and buy one. They're not that much.
If only they had a lobe in their skulls.
This one here from Holly Norton Blacklocks there. Senate Ethics Officer James O'Reilly yesterday says he does not have authority to take public complaints against political appointees. That was what we were talking about, that senator there. O'Reilly said he cannot further comment at this time regarding insults posted by Senator Charles Adler on his official Twitter account. The one that, you know, when we shared some of those things yesterday, where he just seems to have this absolute hatred for Pierre Poilievre, like absolute distaste, and it's just unprofessional. You know, some of the tweets, I don't know if you want to, if you buy garbage this desperate, if you buy the garbage this desperate loser is selling, you're an imbecile. So attacking not only Poilievre, but anybody that dared vote for him. Poilievre is suffering from more shrinkage. Well, who would write this? Poilievre is suffering from more shrinkage than George Costanza. If you watch Seinfeld, you know what I'm talking about there. From swimming in the pool. Like, he's now attacking his bodily parts. This is from a senator. This is the decorum. Hey, think about that. On his Twitter account, Mr. Poilievre is suffering from more shrinkage than George Costanza. This is somebody that we're paying over 200 grand a year for to do what? Write Twitter posts all day attacking the opposition. That's his job. And then this guy, the ethics guy.
He looks so dignified and respectable.
Does he? The ethics guy says, well, I don't know. I can't, Imagine if it was the other way around. The CBC would be losing their literal minds right now. If an MP, a conservative MP was writing, or a conservative senator was writing things about Mark Carney's private parts, imagine the shitstorm, eh? This one here comes your DEI stuff. Ready? Migrant Museum in deficits. This is from Blacklock's as well. A federal immigration museum faces years of operating deficits, according to management. The Canadian Museum in Immigration in Halifax blamed losses in large part to public opinion about foreigners. The museum's sustainability is being eroded over time. And of course, they're going to start punishing you here. Wait for it, right? The facility has a $12.4 million annual operating budget. You need $12 million to run a museum? How? Directors were told impending federal budget cuts worth $756,000 this year, $900 in 2027, and $1.3 in 2028. So they're saying, we need the money. We need the money. The museum's location at Pier 20 in Halifax is the site of the customs hall that processed transatlantic passengers from 1928 to its closure in 1971. I wonder why people's perception of immigration is soured. I wonder what could give Canadians that thing. Economic concerns as well as housing crisis contribute to an increase in the number of Canadians who think immigration levels are too high. Social cohesion in our country is threatened by the growing ideological divides, often manifesting in anti-immigrant rhetoric. Wonder why?
It's your fault. It's your fault for reacting to this unprecedented change that's been thrust upon you.
Crime, high unemployment, no access to healthcare, and it's your fault. It's not the Liberals that did it. It's not their fault. Your fault for reacting. Your fault for complaining that people are dying on waiting lists. Your fault for complaining that people are literally dying in waiting rooms. We've done those stories, like literal stories. These are facts. These are not made up things. Literally dying in waiting rooms, in ER rooms. Your fault. Unemployment at Conestoga College, having 86% of their student body being foreigners, and unemployment in that community banging on the door of 20% for the youth, and inflation running wild, rents running high. Your fault for complaining. Your fault for the Toronto police telling you to leave your keys at the front door so when they break in to steal your car, that they don't go further into your home. Hell, why not just leave it outside running? Oh, right, you can't leave it outside running because the climate cops will come and give you a ticket for leaving your car idling. So they got time for climate cops, they got time for all that stuff, but they got no time for, they got social media cops, climate cops, but no time for crime cops. If you're a cop, like, what's going on, right? You got climate cops, DEI cops too. We got all kinds of cops, except for crime cops. We have a shortage of crime cops, eh?
Except for cops.
I don't know. This guy got, what's the deal with Tom Clark? Tom Clark was living in that beautiful penthouse there on Central Park, right there. He had a penthouse in Central Park worth about $8.8 million. Cabinet yesterday dismissed broadcaster Tom Clark as Canada's $232,000 a year New York Council midway through his term. Liberals had attempted to defend Clark following outcry of his expenses. It does work. Scream bloody murder. Like I said, go to thereallybigshow.ca. All the MPs' addresses are going to be there in the bottom of the shirts box. Find them. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. I find my information on The Really Big Show. I don't read garbage media anymore. I find the truth here. These people need to be shamed out of public life. Like, they need to be shamed. They just take from a taxpayer base that cannot afford to give anymore. They cannot afford to give anymore. We're going to talk about the bonuses of Canada Post, but the Farm Credit Corporation lady that makes over $500,000 a year after her bonuses and all that stuff, but still racks up $500,000 in expenses in a couple of years. $500,000. Dr. Noma Meaner, she couldn't even tell in committee what the hell she did for work and what value she brought to the Canadian public. These people are just living off the taxpayer like parasites, like literal parasites. And then somebody tried to defend him there. We need you, then Liberal MP Majid Jawhari. I told the 2024 hearing of Commons Operations Committee, we need you now more than ever. Clark was dismissed without comment after 3 years on the job. His previous two predecessors had served 6-year terms. Conservative MPs ridiculed Clark as a $9 million man after the Department of Foreign Affairs purchased a luxury Manhattan penthouse on his behalf as counsel. The Central Park condominium was equipped with a marble bathroom, $4,600 coffee maker, and charges for taxes and condo fees. The condo fees and taxes for that were $15,000 a month. How much do you get for your rent or your mortgage? $15,000 a month, $4,600. Meanwhile, hunger crisis in Canada for many Canadians, 11% below the poverty line. People who can't afford meat. Half the population of Canada now, 20 million people, $200 away from meeting monthly obligations, from the brink of financial collapse. This guy living high on the hog. And how many got free tickets to FIFA?
Looks like he did as well.
Looks like he did too. Listen to this.
There's some better stuff down here. Clark billed taxpayers for a $6,950 junket to Hollywood for outreach.
In Hollywood. And
he went to Bermuda as well. $9,500 to go to Bermuda.
He stayed at Marilyn Monroe's favorite Beverly Hills hotel. Well, why not? Wouldn't you? You can afford that, can't you? Oh, no, right. You've got to pay for it yourself. You're paying for his stay because, he's a pretty big deal. He spent like almost $10,000 in Bermuda with a $503 lunch to learn about Bermudan high school culture. Why not, eh?
That's a priority, isn't it, for Canadians? Think about it. Canadians are going to spend $9,500 so that their leaders can learn about Bermudan high school culture.
And he also hosted a 3-course luncheon with wine. The bill for that one at his penthouse, just under $2,000. Money is no object. They're just like, who cares? Whatever it costs. Yeah, whatever it costs. Who cares? As Mark Carney said, when Mark Carney said that? Who cares? Who cares? Right?
Put it on the tab. Like.
Who cares? Mark Carney does it himself. $1 million in in-flight catering. They don't care. They literally don't care. So go to thereallybigshow.ca. You really got to do this because if you push back, they don't like it when you push back. He also had a luncheon with a journalist that was aimed to assess political climate, a separate 2023 luncheon to discuss indigenous art. $1,827. Tom, he was a former journalist. So that's what I mean. You wonder why the journalists are compromised. If you do a good job, as you finish out, maybe you'll get yourself a nice cushy job, right? Hey? Just shh.
For me, it's like how brazen this is. Do they think Canadians, the average Canadian, has never either filled out an expense form or been around people filling out expense forms? But, I mean, learn more about Bermudan high school culture. You can imagine him just laughing. Just like, what should we say? Like, why are we on holiday in Bermuda? Why did we want this vacation? Oh, yeah, like high school culture? It's just like, come on. Again, it's this assumption. It's this assumption that the Canadian people are just stupid beyond belief. Just so dumb. That they're going to go, yes, of course. Yeah, high school culture in Bermuda. I mean, yeah, definitely. And then you've got people so that the senior public servants here writing the memos to the minister. One of the memos says, talking about the New York property that was bought, says, the property purchase was highly medialized.
Wonder why.
But also, medialized? Anyone? What? We have somebody that's probably getting like 200 grand a year or more of
More.
our money.
Yeah.
Yeah. To work for the government, to write memos for the minister, and they're just making up words because they are so far away from literacy. Literacy is so far out of reach for these great magisterial individuals that they invent words. Medialized. What's going on here? Like, do they do intelligence tests? Do they do literacy tests before letting people into the government? That's now my question.
Well, they want to make up words like the Canada Post guy made up those words where he didn't call it a bonus, he called it at-risk rewards or whatever the heck he called it.
At-risk pay, yeah.
Just like stupidity, like and who are the people that buy this? Just like, oh, Tom Clark's $9 million condo was medialized. So yeah, don't even look at it because it's medialized. It's not about the $9 million. It's about he's being picked on, right? As Canadians live without food. Hey, food banks don't even have enough food right now. There's not enough food at the food banks. But Tom's doing well. Look at Tom. Tom's doing well. He's eating well. Hey, Tom's not starving. Mark Carney's not starving.
He also used to. Who did he work? He used to work for Global or something, didn't he? Big Tom. He was a journalist, I believe.
When does the offer come in for Ian and I, and what kind of job can we get? Hey. I think our job might be like banging rocks in like just on the outskirts of Shanghai somewhere.
I'll take it. If you send me somewhere nice in China, I'll have it. Send me to Sichuan. That's where I want to bang rocks. And
this is in the news that nobody gives a poop about. New Green Party logo okayed. Hey, Elections Canada has approved the new logo for the Green Party. The new look needed federal approval as a legal requirement. Okay. That to that? How much did they pay for that? Can I sign up for that? I could have done that with a Sharpie.
It doesn't look right either. It looks like it's called Party Vert. It's like, what? What's the Party Vert?
CBC ramping up their climate nonsense. I didn't put the link in to play this because why? As they're doing, like the roads are melting in, literally that's what they're, the roads are melting. The roads are melting in Manitoba right now, literally melting. That's why we need carbon capture, utilization, storage. That's going to stop the roads from melting almost immediately. As soon as they get that thing fired up, the roads will stop melting. Hey, did you know that?
It'll suck out the heat. It's like an air conditioner for Canada.
These talking heads that are usually on CTV, these anti-Pierre Poilievre guys, like they're just, it's like a hit machine, right? And I don't know if you want to play a little bit of it. Well, I'll tell you when to stop. We can play a little bit of it. Just listen in.
At this point by saying to you, David, something I was thinking about earlier when we were chatting. I was just listening to Corey, and he was talking about Andrew Scheer and Pierre Poilievre can't get a job after politics and so on and so forth. And I was thinking to myself, Jesus, man, we could pick up an abacus poll and we can see that Pierre Poilievre, whether you like it or not, you don't want to believe it or whatever, like Pierre Poilievre has lost a portion of the voting public. Now, maybe he could reclaim that. I don't know. But as it stands right now, he has most definitely lost a portion of the voting Canadian public. In addition to that, I'm listening to Corey. Hammer on Poilievre. And you know that there's Corey. I read Nick Kouvalis' tweets on the weekend where Nick has decided to file his teeth down to a sharp point and start biting. You get Caroline Elliott putting out that video. Like, there are now a lot of conservatives, Brian Lilly writes that column, there are a lot of conservatives across the country who are saying openly, I just assume Pierre Poilievre not win. Fuck it. Maybe I'll start my sentence by saying, listen, I'm a conservative and I like to see the Conservative Party win. But really, we're now in a world where not only is some of the voting public abandoned, but now you've got conservatives openly saying, oh, man, fuck this. Fuck this guy.
That's good from this guy. But this
I didn't know he used naughty words. That's what he does when he takes his tie off.
That's what they watch, like Ron Butler, and they're just like, "That's how you get views." F F F F F F F F F F F F F F. We try to keep it clean. In odd time, it slips out, but it's not like like it's like you're in the high school parking lot there when you got to use the F word in every sentence to be cool, okay? Just like F-bomb this, F-bomb that, F F F F F F F, right?
It's a dork trying to look tough, one might say.
And I had a friend tell me that he can get us Corey tonight on this show. I said, sure, prove it to me. Prove it to me. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting. You know who you are. You said you promised it. Let's see it. Come on, Corey. Come on. Good one. Here's another one. If you can just put your Sherlock Holmes hat on for 10 seconds. Just for 10 seconds. Gun license applications surging in Toronto. Firearms license surge in the GTA in the recent years, according to a new report from CBC, with the municipality of Peel logging, I wonder why Peel, logging a 110% increase from between 2016 and 2025. The article explains shooting is becoming more popular as a sporting activity, adding that firearms expert told the outlet that his instructors did not hear from people that say they want firearms for self-defense. What's going on in Peel? What do we hear from Peel almost all the time? Anybody?
And people, Jim, they're not writing down when they request an application. They're saying sports. So just like that fella who went to Bermuda to learn about high school culture in Bermuda, that was the reason. That was definitely the reason he went to Bermuda, wasn't it, guys?
Why wouldn't you?
Because he wrote that down. We're not seeing anything. It's a complete coincidence that it happens to be in Peel. I mean,
nothing happens in Peel, right? Have you seen any problem in Peel?
No. Why would you need a gun there? Come on.
And this one's troubling. This one's troubling. You did this story this morning. This one is absolutely troubling. It's on kelownow.com. You can go read it. I'm going to cover it a little bit. But this is like systemic as well. BC teacher loses certificate after emotionally manipulating female student. This story is like common. Like how many do we do? Like one every 2 weeks? One. I don't know. Like it's frequent.
Sometimes couple of months. Yeah.
It's frequent. It's frequently that these high school teachers are inviting kids to their home, texting them late at night, buying them booze, inappropriately touching them, and then
sending them messages and stuff. That's what this one's about, like sending emails and giving gifts and stuff. Like, how could you think that's an acceptable thing to do? I don't know.
And then some of the punishments are like a week suspension and stuff like that. This guy, they pulled his license, but they should pull all their licenses like immediately. And this guy engaged in a wide range of boundary violations. Like this is not his first offense. Like he's had tons of these violations. This one, he was giving her gifts, communicating with her about personal matters, and emotionally manipulating her for his own goals. Grooming, really. You want to just break it down, right? And Lamb did not.
And that's the reason it's sketchy, remember, is because they're kids. And you're in a position of authority. We all know that it's possible to manipulate little inexperienced people, don't we? That's why it's such a violation. That should really be emphasized, that you've been put in a position of trust and you're supposed to, the very last thing you're supposed to ever do is to use your authority and your age advantage to manipulate the little people.
And Lamb didn't even decide to defend himself because he's probably just like, The panel said there was no evidence of mitigating circumstances such as steps taken by Lamb to address his behavior. Instead, it found mostly aggravating factors, including prior misconduct, serious impacts on students, and Lamb's lack of insight. And it also said Lamb had a significant history of professional boundary concerns. Yet he continued to teach. Your kids go to that school, awesome, right? He received a reprimand once there. In 2014, Lamb entered in a consent resolution agreement with the commissioner admitting a wide range of professional boundary violations, including involving himself in students' personal lives. He received a reprimand, a harsh reprimand, and agreed to complete a Justice Institute of BC course. The panel said the remedial steps did not improve his conduct. Okay.
Terrible.
Lamb's 68 years old. And also this is his thing. He has a debilitating medical issues, and he'll likely never return to work. Good. Really good. Isn't the protection of the children the number one thing? Like if you were like Star Trek, isn't it the prime directive, protect the children?
I would think so.
That should be the prime directive, not protect Lamb and other people that commit violations of their code of conduct in a position of trust. This is systemic. This is like we're doing these stories all the time.
Yeah.
I promised you this here. I promised you this. This is Chamath again. I really like Chamath. And he's going to break it down. If the Democrats had won, listen to this here. It's important.
What
Chamath, jump in. I think it's important to take a step back and realize you're making a very specific, numerically grounded comparison about what your opinion of President Trump is.
It's not my opinion.
No, I'm just saying, you can make a numerical comparison. Imagine if we were sitting here and we'd have to first declare 19 pronouns, and we'd have to talk about, the DEI. Like I'm here because I'm like a Sri Lankan immigrant that grew up on welfare. I have to tell you my whole sob story. Where we were going was not a place that was oriented around productivity. It was around theater. But hold on.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but that's a different topic.
So I'm saying you have some valid points about where GDP could be or could not be. You should thank the lucky stars that that's what we're debating right now.
Andrew should shut up for a while too. Andrew did that interview with Elon Musk as well, and you remember that when he asked Elon Musk like why he's not changing X because the advertisers are leaving him, and Ian said GFY, and he repeated it a couple times because I think he believed Eisner was in the audience there at Disney because Disney pulled their advertising off of X because Elon allowed Trump back on the platform. Imagine that, eh? He allowed the president back on the platform. Freedom of speech. America, it's the First Amendment, freedom of speech, but not for the president of the United States, apparently, right?
And it's still not, we were promised that it was going to be defeated. Mastodon, Blue Sky, Threads. But it still has not been defeated, has it?
Blue Sky, that's like if somebody's been attacking me on LinkedIn, a few people have been attacking me on LinkedIn lately. It's somebody said that, because I post some of our show clips there, and they're just like, you call yourself a journalist, that's a joke. Some writer. I'm just like, ChatGPT could run circles around you in like 10 seconds, so shut up, eh? You shut up. We got Dan at 11, but here's Chamath one more time on AI. We got a couple of AI things here and some tech stuff just sharing with you. We got a couple of good things right at the end, though. I need to share this, but I'll let you play this here.
So we just talked about 4 of the big model makers, maybe 5 of the model makers. We talked about OpenAI, Anthropic. You mentioned Gemini. We talked about Grok, and we talked about Meta.
Yeah.
How do you see them all stacking up longer term?
I think that you are seeing a convergence. It used to be the case that when a model dropped, it was so superior to everything else. You're like, oh my God, we went from kerosene to Jet A, right? To jet fuel. So of course I'm going to go to jet fuel. Instead, I think the analogy now is we've seen the nth version of the iPhone. We've all kept upgrading to it. We're still using it for roughly the same behaviors. My elbow hurts. What should I do?
That's good. I think what he's getting at there is a lot of these models are now competing, and it's going to be on price too, right? Like, and what you get used to, right? So I think I use about 4 different models now to see where it's going. I do like Grok. Jim and Ian are no longer Canadians. Jim needs to move to Wyoming. Ian needs to move to Utah.
I'll take, if I have to. I mean, I love Wyoming, but Utah is sunnier. Lots of sunshine in Utah.
Well, I got a good point on that. This is a big deal. On Friday, we have a guest, a New York lawyer, coming on to talk about people that are deciding to move to the U.S. Because so many people are talking about it. I figured we should get some questions answered. So we have a guest coming on. She's a speaker. She's very well known, and she's going to come on the show. And if you have some questions for that show, that's great. I think her name is Laura Cohen, and she's going to come on the show, and it's going to be great. And so if you have questions for that, and maybe we could get Mark Carney to come on because his kids and his wife are down there. He can explain it as well, right?
What's the big attraction?
What's the big deal? What's the big deal? Starlink releasing its next-gen V5 kit. You can play this without the audio, and Ian and I can talk over it here. Just don't turn the audio on because there's just some Star Trek-y noise there. So I've been using Starlink for, I think close to 4 years now. I just got a V3 kit. Or no, a V4 kit. Sorry, a V4 kit, a V4 Plus. An upgrade from the original. I had the original dish, and it's got an upgrade. And they gave me a free upgrade, too. It was nice. But it's super fast. It's like, and I've been using it forever. It's great. And they won't, I doubt Elon will be the last guy to turn data over to the government when they come banging on your door. We got a clip to show you here at the end as well. That's it. That's kind of concerning. We're going to show you this train that got trapped in Armstrong, Ontario, there in wildfire. It's kind of interesting. Watch this clip here. Isn't this a clip right here? What's this?
Could potentially overtake us here. This is getting a little scary.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Okay. Yeah, this is.
Okay, y'all need to hurry up here. Like, seriously, we're encased in flames now.
You guys gotta go backwards. Go.
Backwards is a good idea, boys.
Hello, Jody, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you there. I'm telling them you were notching up.
Yeah, this has got to move fucking quick here.
You're allowed to use the word there.
Definitely, you've got permission.
Like you can use 3 of that word in that one sentence there if you're in that situation.
Holy crap. Oh, that's alright. This kind of burnt off, so we'll be okay now.
Yeah, it went across. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
Oh yeah, look over there.
We are
You guys got a light now or what? Did you guys get that light?
There, look at that.
Oh yeah, they're clipping. Whew! That's a meat and a half, eh?
There's Canadian bravery for you.
Yeah, calm under pressure.
Like they say in the video clips, everybody made it out. Everybody made it out. But interesting, eh?
Fire like that is terrifying, isn't it? Reading a story about some wildfires in Spain that are going on right now, and it's like that movie. I can't remember the title of that movie. It was Josh Brolin, which is about fighting wildfires. Like the speed that it moves at, it's like it's faster than a bear hunting you down. It's like it's absolutely terrifying.
Here's your buddy, Keir. Keir defending himself. Listen up.
Our party, I turned it round. I made a promise to rip anti-Semitism out of my party, and I did. I turned my party to face the country, and we won a landslide Labour general election. And after 2 years, We've stabilised the economy. We have invested heavily in our public services. We've put better protections in for children, particularly on child poverty. We've strengthened our defence and we've enhanced our international reputation. I'm proud to leave this country in a better shape than I found it.
Rebuttal, Mr. Burns?
I don't know. Does it actually need a rebuttal? I don't think so. He's self-rebutting, isn't he? That's the whole...
That's the point there, yeah.
That's the USP, isn't it, with that chap? But, I mean, he keeps talking about this bloody landslide. I mean, it's shameless, isn't it? They didn't, you know, by any sort of normal assessment, they didn't win a landslide. The party that was in power, the Conservative Party, suffered a landslide. People voted against that party. The entire story was about that party, the Conservative Party, which people looked at as having betrayed the country. They looked at them as traitors and they punished them. For Keir Starmer to pop in and say how great he was, I mean, tiresome. But I guess, you know, he has to have something for his ego, I guess. There has to be something that gets him through this, and that's going to be what he's going to hold on to.
This one's troubling, and it was sent to us by the Island Fox here to watch it, because apparently this was sent to a YouTuber in UK, and she's worried that it's going to happen to people like us here in Canada. Let's watch this, I think from about 2:30, right? Around 2:30? Play it from around 2:30.
Read from the note that YouTube sent me on Friday night as I settled down to what I hoped would be a quiet weekend. You need to know what's happening because you are as important to Outspoken and this independent media revolution as I am. So this is what I was sent by YouTube. Keep YouTube yours. Your channel, your say. YouTube is yours because you built it. View by view, subscriber by subscriber, on the merit of your ideas and your connection with your audience. However, proposed new rules could fundamentally change how your content is discovered, recommended, and viewed in the UK. The UK government is running a public consultation called Watch This Space, a new strategic direction for UK media. The proposals include mandatory changes to how content is delivered on YouTube. This could direct audiences away from your channel. As a UK creator, this directly impacts your future. Digital content discovery works best when driven by user choice, not legal requirements. This is a vital window for you to share your perspective before the consultation closes on the 31st of August. Then we come to the impact of the proposed rules. And the proposed new rules include a mandatory prominence regime. This could require digital platforms like YouTube to prioritize and give a privileged position to traditional broadcasters. We know who we are talking about. British Bashing Corporation, Woke ITV, Channel 4 News, Sly News. And they would have this privileged position on user interfaces and recommendation feeds, potentially pushing your content out of sight. Mandating prominence to traditional institutions will impact all other independent digital creators, production companies, and media companies, including through your content being downranked. Pushing this group forward means pushing everyone else downward. Mandatory prioritization of broadcasters would affect how your content reaches your audience, regardless of what your audience actually wants to see. Reducing news.
They're already talking about this in Canada.
I mentioned this specifically as well last week, I think. But yeah, this applies to Canada. As usual, you know, they work in conjunction with one another, don't they? Which is something I think that really freaks out a lot of people in Western countries, the way that they all seem to converge on the same ideas and they implement them at about the same time as well.
How important their message is. Like, we share truth here, truth that CBC won't share. So why is it so important to shut us up? We are accredited media too, but we won't get this favorable treatment. I guarantee you that. They already took away our audience of 200,000 that we earned over the decade serving our community. They took that away from us, and it's been about 3 years now they took that away with Bill C-18. So what's this? Another way? So Ian and I go, they created us, though. They literally created us because they squeezed us to here. And now we're obviously like a thorn. So now they're going after creators as well on YouTube. The only place they probably don't have an effect is X, because Elon will say, good one. Good one.
Until X is
shut
punished
off
in other ways,
Canada.
I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, shut off in Canada, like in Russia and North Korea or something like that, right? We do have a salute for you today, and we're going to salute X or Twitter. Twitter. Like I said, I never liked the Twitter. I never liked the word tweeter. I like X way better. Twitter seemed so goofy all the time. And I had built a good Twitter audience too, and then I even had Paris Hilton following me. And Ian said I should have sold that account because I deleted it after because Twitter got so goofy. I'm just like, I don't want to be on Twitter anymore. And then when Elon got it, I went back on X, and I think it's the most important platform now because it was like they turned it into Blue Sky. They just shut everybody else off, right? And they loved it then. Like, here's Jack Dorsey. He created Twitter. 2006 went live. 2006 on this day. Twitter went live.
And he created it before he moved to the Shire and became a hobbit.
He actually said what Elon did was right. So he lost control of it himself. Jack lost control of X, and it was basically given over to the Kamala Harris gang.
Yeah. They bullied him, and then ended up getting these vicious reptilian creatures to come and take over the company. And two of them hilariously did an interview with Joe Rogan. Do you remember that? And that some little fella was there. I can't remember. Somebody else was there. Some internet person was there who was like a critic of the Twitter moderation regime, and he was just Joe Rogan was just like, "What do you think of this, huh?" And then he was just like laying into Twitter, and they kept trying to defend it. It was astonishing the way they ran that platform. It was awful. But if you're interested in, like, if this for you is like, if you missed the old Twitter and you never engaged with it, you didn't realize you didn't get to experience what it was like. The regime that they had in place. Just go on Reddit. Go on Reddit now. If I don't want you to get hurt, but go check out Reddit, and that's just like the old Twitter. Like, it's not changed there. It's still like 2018 or whatever in Reddit world.
And then Aragon bought it from the Shire. King Aragon showed up, and let's go to a clip of Aragon showing up into Twitter headquarters. This guy is the ultimate troll. Let's play that clip there. You imagine all the quaking in the boots there, as the sensors up there upstairs are just like, this is the last day on the job. So Elon Musk, when he bought X, he let go 80% of the staff. He basically said, bring me all your work for the last 2 months. I think it was 2 months or 3 months. Bring me all your work, print it out, bring it to me. You're all coming to a meeting. Bring me, if you have nothing to show, you know the answer already. You don't need to come. You're done. Like, if you don't have any code to show me, you're done. And like there was on all the left media, they were playing all the tears, and like they interviewed a lot of the people with the like the multicolored hair and all that kind of stuff. And crying and saying, how evil Elon Musk is and stuff like that. They're like the liberal bureaucrats right now. They just feel entitled. They don't have to produce anything. They don't have to create value or anything. They're just entitled to a job. Entitled to a job. And they're doing the good work of silencing you. Like, if you dare spoke out, they silenced you. Just like, and that's the end of you. Boom. Ha-ha. Hey? What a job, eh? The power.
Yeah.
Elon Musk may have well saved Western democracy by 1, buying X, and then 2, when Trump was the assassination attempt, and coming out in support of Trump, and then went on the campaign trail for for, you know, month and a half. And otherwise, what Chamath said there, we would all be speaking in pronouns, right? Well, Ian and I wouldn't have a show. We wouldn't be here because you'd all be speaking in pronouns. You'd be speaking different language. The language cops would be here. And they're still doing it. All that language stuff, they still do it all the time. Like, we're going to talk with Dan Albas. Like, the language. It's all about language. Medialized. Everything is about language to them. They want to control the language. They want to control you. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. In this day in history, I need power too. In this day in history, in 1799, the Rosetta Stone was discovered. French soldiers in Egypt found the inscribed slab during Napoleon's campaign. It was basically the decipher, right? The cipher. Hey?
Yeah. Amazingly consequential event in human history, that the discovery of that thing.
Yeah. And then
it's in the British Museum, I believe.
Yeah. There you go. Not in the museum out there in the coast, the eastern coastline there, where they need more money for DEI stuff.
They might get some visitors if they had something like that.
And one of the greatest conquerors the world's ever seen, Napoleon surrenders in 1815 after Waterloo. Napoleon boarded the HMS Bellerophon, and surrendered to the Brits, ending the Napoleonic Wars and leading to exile in St. Helena. Hey?
The dirty dog.
Can you put your hand in there? I wonder what he was doing with all the time.
Yeah, that's what. It's clearly what it was about, isn't it?
Just giving himself a cop and a feel all the time. Is that what Napoleon was always up to? Have you've been to the Louvre? I'm sure you have.
Mm-hmm.
I went there. I think I've been there twice, and some of the paintings they have in there, you could stare at them for hours. Like, it's a whole Napoleon battle scene or whatever, and like this, it just I don't know how long it took the artist to paint that or whatever. But I mean, it's like there's stories you know what I mean? Like it's if you ever get there, it's well worth your time. The least impressed thing that I saw there was the Mona Lisa. I was like, okay, all right.
Just because it just reveals the worst of humanity, doesn't it? Just everybody crowding around like it's some sort of celebrity. There's like a vulgarity about it. And they even put it in like a special area, don't they? It's just
big room,
toxic,
right?
Toxic area.
The big room, right? The big room. And the tiny painting, the big room. And then the room that has these massive paintings that are as big as like 20 foot by 8 foot, like these massive paintings. They're all crowded into like one room. Do you know what I mean? Like they're basically the walls covered in them. And those are the ones that are just unbelievable, right? And also there's a lot of
stuff. The tapestries as well. Yeah. I mean, tapestries not that big of a deal for some people, but they have amazing medieval tapestries in the Louvre. I remember being obsessed with them because they've got they have like scenes, really interesting medieval scenes on them.
And then they have a lot of stuff from the Egyptian era too, like the mummies and the tombs and all that stuff too. Well worth your time. And in 1099, the Crusaders, this has been going on forever. In 1099, the Crusaders captured Jerusalem in the First Crusade. Christian forces under leaders like Godfrey of Bouillon base, is that the Bouillon base? Stormed and took the city after a grueling siege, a pivotal and controversial moment in the Crusades. When was King
Richard? Business.
Which crusade was Richard? It was later, no?
Yeah, that was later, wasn't it, with Richard, I think. Let me have a look. Don't want to embarrass myself. Which crusade did you go on, Dickie boy? Third Crusade.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot later, yeah.
And he got himself captured like an utter fool, and he had to be
ransomed.
Ransomed by the peasantry of England, which was an enormous imposition on the English people.
Again? Usually, you pay.
Who pays for it? You, peasant.
You always the guy. Like, maybe you should, you're paying the bill for everything. Carbon capture, the King's Return. 1410, the Battle of Grunwald, one of the medieval Europe's largest battles. A lot of big battles, eh? Polish-Lithuanian forces decisively defeated the Teutonic Knights in a clash that reshaped Eastern Europe power dynamics. There's a lot of bloodshed in Europe for sure. The ground is soaked with blood from battles.
Especially there. That place, that area. Eastern Europe.
In 1965, the first close-up images of Mars. I mean, that was like, you know, when we got to see those first images, that was pretty cool, right? And you're seeing some of the stuff now. I mean, I really believe in SpaceX and the stuff that's going to happen. I mean, I think that's a bright future. We should always look to that brighter future. And hopefully what's happening in Canada right now is just, you know, like a blip, and it'll be a bad memory. We just got to get through the other side, right? 1975, Apollo-Soyuz test project. The U.S. and Soviet Union achieved the first joint crewed space mission. That was a big deal, right? The Apollo-Soyuz thing, right? Because that was like them working together, right? Soyuz and the Apollo-Soyuz spacecraft docking in orbit, a symbol of a detente during the Cold War. That was a big deal, a big deal. And now you got Mark Carney talking about middle powers actually trying to cause division, if anything, right? The divider. I mean, politics like that have worked for the Carney liberals, right? Those are the kind of politics that have worked. Dan Albas is gonna join us in about 4 minutes. We're gonna take about a 3-minute break here. Ian and I are gonna head to the Louvre. Head to the Louvre, is that a song?
Head to the Louvre.
Head to the Louvre, and then we'll be back 3 minutes. Cue it up for 3 minutes. Can you do that? And then stick around, go get yourself a coffee, use the washroom, whatever you got to do. Dan Albas is going to be in here to talk about those bonuses. Who doesn't love the bonuses? Somebody said they love, and I can't pronounce it. Diana says the museum in Holland there.
Rijksmuseum. Museum. It's in Amsterdam.
Come for the mispronunciations. I am the king at mispronunciations. I own that space all by myself, all by my lonesome. And there you go. Okay. Skip to the loo. There you go. We'll take a break. We'll be back with Dan Albas in like 3 short minutes here. See you in 3 minutes. Hey, we're back. We got Dan Albas with us, Conservative MP, Okanagan Lake West and South Kelowna. Lake West, South Kelowna. What?
Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna, Jim.
There you go. Like my eyesight, I'm leaning in there trying to read that. I like that Snoopy thing in the back. Thanks for joining us this morning, though. Thank you for joining us. Ian and I have done quite a few shows now on the Canada Post bonuses, and we had Franco Terrazzano on yesterday too, from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation Association. And it seems like at this time, you know, when Canadians record numbers in food bank lineups, you know, 11% of the population now below the poverty line, and 50% now near a breaking point in Canada. And yet federal bureaucrats taking bonuses, $31 million in a failing corporation that's losing $1 billion a year. How do they justify that?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's good to see you and Ian. Second of all, Canada Post, I would say, is a dependent Crown corporation right now, not an independent Crown corporation, as the government likes to say. Every time Conservatives raise issues about large bonuses at Canada Housing and Mortgage Corporation, or which is not performing right now towards our housing starts, whether it be Via Rail, which only about 51% of their trains actually arrive on time, or even with other agencies like NavCan, there's these so-called independent corporations are making decisions that don't seem to be in line with government policy. And I would simply say it starts from the head down. We are at a time where the government says, you know, there is a cost of living crisis, that we need to rein back in spending so that we can spend on things that make us wealthier over the long-term investments and things like military, et cetera. And yet here we have where they are making large cuts, and I can talk about those large cuts in Transport Canada that make Canadians less safe. And at the same time, they're just not even defending Canada Post giving itself $30 million plus in bonuses, or the corporation likes to say at-risk pay. This is not the nomenclature that usually used in the public service where they call it performance pay. I would like the government or someone at Canada Post with some authority to actually get in front of a microphone, answer questions, whether it be from the opposition or whether it be from reporters, and to justify this spending at this time, because it's completely opposite of what they're telling Canadians.
Well, we reached out and asked for an interview. We got a statement, which is just, a lot of nothing, right? Saying that, they need to keep these employees because they're at risk. And then this is language means everything. And this is a quote from Doug Ettinger. In the broader compensation program, to keep that talent, we paid a bonus last year. So sorry, at-risk pay. He couldn't even get it right. It was part of their compensation because he knows it's a bonus. I mean, they're using language to kind of distract from what's really happening. And I think at this time, it is so hard for the taxpayer. It seems like it's systemic abuse of the taxpayer because, like you said, in its CMHC, it's in.
So just on this front, though, just let's be mindful that Canada Post is supposed to be an independent Crown corporation that operates on its own revenues, right? But that's where I made the point at the top of this interview is that it is no longer an independent Crown corporation. It is a dependent one. So the government shelled over multiple payments. The last one was $1.5 billion in a non-market loan to Canada Post to sustain itself. Then they go and take that money and give it to themselves. So as you've said many times on this show, Canada Post executives are not performing. They're actually dependent on taxpayer money. The minister is trying to have it both ways. But you can't. You can't say that they're independent and then write them a check for $1.5 billion to sustain them. And that's where the Canada Post spokesperson I called out yesterday, I said money is fungible. They're trying to make this a spin here, Jim, where they're saying that the $30 million came from their own revenues. But that's not possible when you're taking $1.5 billion. And this is where I said we need to have some accountability either from the government, from the minister himself, or from Mr. Pettinger. And he needs to explain why, at a time where they need taxpayer bailouts, that they are continuing to take taxpayer money, because this is not normal. This is not how that particular corporation was set up to operate. So I think we should be asking the government whether or not it agrees with this, because they are clearly taking that $30 million from the taxpayer, which is not normal.
We have reached out to MP Joel Lightbound as well. Still haven't heard back. This is part of their statement that they sent to us. This is from the Media Relations Department. With our financial situation, we understand the optics and the concerns the decision will raise. These payments are part of the existing compensation program and are funded from Canada Post's own revenues, not the repayable government bridge funding we received. Our objective is to reestablish a sustainable, reliable postal service for all Canadians that can pay back these loans as quickly as possible.
Well, then show us the plan. Show us what you've done to justify this. Have you turned the organization around? Like, look, when Air Canada was in trouble, the government said, we're going to allow you to have some certain provisions around not making payments in the pension plan. That was over the objections of lots of people that depended on that plan, but they did. And the government said there was also going to be no executive bonuses as part of said plan. So the $1.5 billion that Minister Lightbound has given this group on behalf of taxpayers, there was obviously no conditions attached to it. And that's the problem we have here. They're trying to have it both ways. They're trying to say, it's not us, or it's not the government. It's the independent Crown Corporation. But guess what? Who hires the CEO, and who's supposed to monitor the CEO? The board. Guess who appoints the board? The same government. So you can't have it where you say it's independent while it's dependent on you, and you can't say that this is solely up to those directors and their decisions because you appointed them. So someone needs to own this, and unfortunately, both the minister and from Canada Post, from the CEO level down, they're trying to spin it off as somehow that it's not theirs either.
I'm going to ask one more question. I'll turn you over to Ian there. It comes at a tough time, though, and I want to hit on this point again, is like Canadians, Mark Carney said, Canadians may have to make sacrifices. And the CEO, Doug Ettinger there, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right or not, but he's making in the $600,000 to $700,000 range plus his bonuses and all that other stuff. it seems very audacious to continue to take money from those that can't afford to give more. Do you know what I mean? Like Canadians are at a breaking point. Like half of Canadians now, $200 away from, like financial solvency, and they take more when they already have enough. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. Like it seems like there's a culture in Ottawa. When we talked to Franco yesterday, there's a culture in Ottawa that the entitlement there it's a different class of people. They're the important ones, because that's what that message says. We can't lose these people. They're too important, but we can lose the taxpayer.
Well, look, Mark Carney has not made himself available this week for a presser where he could take questions on the Gordie Howe Bridge, and why suddenly, we're going to be giving a certain amount of the revenue that's gained from it to the Americans for their own regional development. That's not accountability. And again, when we have taxpayer money being funneled to a dependent crown corporation, and then they just say we're using our own revenues, which is clearly false, that's not accountability. So Jim, as I was mentioned to you earlier, right now, the Directorate of Dangerous Goods, in an order paper question I had, they have let go a number of positions. Out of a $17 million a year budget, they've carved out $7 million. Now, this is at a time where Mr. Carney is saying we need to get more of our goods, particularly energy, to market, whether it be propane that the Japanese desperately want through the port of Prince Rupert, or whether it be through a new West pipeline. If we're going to have new markets, we're going to have to be able to get that product to market. And so now cutting the agency that's responsible to oversee the transport of dangerous goods, that's insane to me. And yet here we have $30 million being siphoned from a government bailout going into the pockets of these executives without any kind of acknowledgement or justification that they're turning that organization around. Like, as I said before, they've had multiple payments now of $1 billion or more to keep them afloat. And this is what they choose to do with it. It's unconscionable to me. And you know what? Again, this comes from the top down. If Mr. Carney was an accountable prime minister who believed that part of his role as being leader of a democracy is to be accountable, we would be hearing a lot more about this. And there are mechanisms they can put in place. As I said, when Mr. Lightbound gave that $1.5 billion to them, did he say no bonuses? Well, I think we know that the answer is clearly a no. He didn't bother. And that's the problem we have right now. We have leaders in both these crown corporations that think they're above themselves, and we have a leader who doesn't think he needs to answer basic questions or justify his spending.
I know, Dan, if my financial statements are a mess, and we've been struggling here, you know that media's been struggling, that I can't call the bank up and say, hey, we don't have any money, but my staff needs a bonus. Do you think you could send over a few $1 million so that everybody's happy here, so I can keep the at-risk people here? And the bank will tell me where to go, right?
Well, I really personally feel right now like the same kind of outrage, but on the same front, like I've been presenting solutions. Bill C-262 would allow Canada Post to be able to get past these interprovincial trade barriers. It would provide valuable revenue to come in. The local Cup W union, local here in my riding, has written to me, and they're supporting this because they see this as an opportunity for Canada Post to do more for the Canadian public and to generate its own revenue rather than just simply cutting. And what do we have here? We have the worst of all worlds. We have where the government is cutting valuable services that protect Canadians. At the same time, it's not taking up opportunities like Bill C-262. And it's also allowing, without any accountability, these big paychecks, these bonuses to go to their executives of these dependent crown corporations. It's horrible.
Ian?
Do you think it's time to follow our European friends, the British, the Germans, the Dutch, and cut the postal service loose and privatize it?
Well, that's an argument that I'm starting to hear from constituents. But again, this is the problem, is if you have an unaccountable organization that's dependent on the taxpayer, sooner or later you have to ask, what are we going to do with it? So that's something that the government should be answering. I try not to speak too much on things that I haven't studied in depth, Ian, but I have heard people ask that very question. And it's a good question that should be answered. But unfortunately, we're not even getting answers on basic questions of accountability from the CEO or from the minister.
So we talked a lot about the bonuses there. That was 31 million, wasn't it?
31 million, yeah.
There was also just under $200 million spent over several years on net zero initiatives, which I find that a little bit mysterious that a postal service will be doing it. What
No.
do you
It's
make
C-12 that was passed by Justin Trudeau. It's the Net Zero Accountability Act. There was two parts. One that issued where the government was going to make net zero by 2050 and install targets up to that date. The second half of the bill, though, applied to crown corporations and the government operations themselves. They have not rescinded that bill. So we've seen Mr. Carney give the environmental lobby whiplash for how he's spun from what he said in his book on values, where he said that essentially, governments had to make sure markets worked morally. And essentially, he's taken a completely different approach. But, Ian, they did not change. So they changed the climate policies, but they have not stopped the crown corporations and other government agencies and other government departments that have to adhere to that. And that's something that we haven't had a discussion on. I believe that it is basically a token to Liberal MPs that feel very strongly about the environment, that are right now having to eat their words when it comes to a new pipeline, when it comes to the environment and climate change and carbon taxes. But on the flip side, the government can say, well, we're still spending tons of money every year, on modernizing our fleets so that they're all EVs, which to that particular section of the Liberal Party, which is still quite considerable, brings glee to their hearts and allows them that fig leaf to go back to their supporters. But you're absolutely right. Is this, if we're not going to adhere to net zero for the government itself, does it make sense to require government agencies and departments and independent crown corporations to follow that same drum when the government's not following that parade anymore?
Since we're on this, this is a little bit sort of slightly off topic, but do you have any sympathy whatsoever with their arguments that we need to go through the energy transition, we need to have these net zero policies because we need to reduce CO2 emissions, and then if you press them on it and say, well, Canada isn't responsible for very much, then they'll say, but we need to set a good example for other countries. Are you persuaded by that at all?
So in 2021, I had a one-on-one debate with the minister of, it was at that time, he's now left, Andrew Wilkinson. And he, I believe at that point, was the Minister of the Environment. It was an environmental debate. And I was accused of having a moral failure for not supporting the government's increased goals of 40 to 45% under 2005 emissions that the government had put forward as part of its ongoing commitment to Paris, the Paris Accord. And so at the time, I said that the government has shown no plan that shows that this is either affordable or achievable. And that's the kind of rhetoric that I've gotten back. Now, when I talk to members of parliament on the opposite side about these things, they laugh now. They laugh because, well, that's politics, I guess, Dan. We've had to make those changes because, well, we have a new prime minister and blah, 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 blah. But you know what? That is the vacuousness of the Liberal Party. They will say anything to be able to warm up to an area where they can get votes. In this case, soft Bloc Québécois, soft Green, soft NDP voters that care very deeply about the climate, and even some soft conservative voters that care about the climate. And are instead, I've used this tool, as you said, that's linked to taxpayer money, making requirements for government agencies and departments and crown corporations to do things the government isn't even actually agreeing to do itself. So to me, they're being hung on their own hypocritical petard for everyone to see here, Ian. Same with the bonuses.
Okay, one more. This is kind of, you would expect this to be part of your shadow ministry, but I'm not sure it is. The ports I don't know if you read that report from the Frontier Centre for Public Policy that highlighted astonishing vulnerabilities in Canada's ports. The involvement of organized crime, hostile states, complete failure to inspect cargo. I mean, we've heard it all before, but this is a new report. And the Conservative Party has released a statement about it. But I'm interested in what you think of this, because it seems to me, if think tanks are talking about this, then obviously they know about this in Iran and North Korea and any of our any hostile states, any country that doesn't like us, even countries maybe that are neutral or actually do like us. This is a remarkable weakness, isn't it?
Yes, well, absolutely. And so Frank Caputo is the lead on public safety for our party. And so the statement you're referring to was from him. But again, we do loop on these issues. And look, Sam Cooper has been reporting on this for years now. It's called the Vancouver model for a reason, because there were gaps in our security and laws that basically made Canada a haven for this kind of activity. So in Vancouver Port, through Sam's writing, I know that the Russian mafia is there, the Chinese triads are there. We also have the Hells Angels, and like the list goes on and on and on. And look, Conservatives believe that these things should be dealt with appropriately. Like in the last election, we actually were saying, let's not just have 2% of inspections. And by the way, that's for the 2% is for things coming into our ports. And by the way, our labor, the forced labor law that we have right now, I will say is a joke. I respect John McKay, the Liberal MP that pushed for it. But I've seen BC Ferries and even Marine Atlantic, both, essentially government-held assets, both basically say that they have nothing to report on their Chinese manufactured ships as being an issue. And so this is the thing, Ian, is that we've been proposing technological and security solutions for all this. There has been some movement in this session where the government gave real powers, real teeth to CBSA to be able to search and demand, documentation and seize that documentation. Like, these are very draconian measures within port property. And my view is that we've allowed this to get so bad that now we have to have these draconian laws that if you're operating within a port, that there's no way to deal with this because it's so invasive. And so I did support that legislation when it went through, and it was subject to a very strong scrutiny by Frank Caputo and Dane Lloyd and others on the committee. But again, this is the problem. We can pass laws like the Foreign Agent Registry, but if you don't enforce them or bring them into force at all, that is a problem. And so whether it be dealing with those CBSA powers that I was talking about the port, even if it has come into force, and I can't confirm that it has right now, do we have the manpower? They've been promising for years now to hire 1,000 RCMP and 1,000 CBSA agents when there are already huge gaps that are existing right now. So whether or not we are actually seeing the rhetoric and the actual road work that's being done, I don't think the two are commensurate.
So just as sort of context here, according to that report, fewer than 2% of inbound containers in Vancouver receive imaging, and fewer than 1% are physically searched. I mean, that's I just think that is astonishing and remarkable.
Well, that's imports as well, Ian. That's imports. What about exports?
Yeah.
Right? Let's be mindful that there is a very real problem in this country when it comes to auto theft. And that's where you see people, that search social media, and they find that they haven't even taken off the Ontario license plates in certain parts of Africa. And they're still driving around saying, hey, that's my car. I found it. And then the problem is that we don't have the exit controls. I've been caucusing with many members on these kinds of issues, and Conservatives, are the only party that seems to be caring about shutting this kind of behavior down. But again, the Liberals just keep, like, we had a shooting the other day in Toronto, and then suddenly I see the Prime Minister is suddenly saying, oh, well, we passed C-14. which, by the way, will only apply to a minority of cases, as somehow that this is a bill that, by the way, was brought into force. And he's touting this as the solution to that shooting. No, like gangs and smuggled guns requires real policing at the borders. It involves real consequences. And what they've done by saying that they have changed bail, well, all it does is a reverse onus. And I've heard from people that are former Crown prosecutors from outside my party, by the way, because we have a number of former Crown prosecutors who don't believe that that particular bill will stem the really violent activities that are happening. So if it's not going to capture that kind of behavior, why is the Prime Minister going out and saying those things? Because it gives them that rhetorical fig leaf to say that we are doing something. To me, this is the problem. They will say anything in order to be able to give people the veneer that they're acting. And it's not fair to the people that have to live with gang violence. And it's not right to the Canadian people that expect a justice system that can actually provide punitive, deter people from this kind of lifestyle and this kind of activity. It just like this really breaks my heart because people will say to me, well, Mr. Albas, didn't you support that legislation? Yes, I support any tightening, but they need to go farther than that they have. And when we put forward legislation like RPAN Canada, our justice critics, Jail Not Bail Act, which would have severely tightened up the system and would have put public safety as a principle when it comes to dealing with bail. Right now, the principle dealing with bail that Justice listened to was passed in C-75 under Justin Trudeau, and that's called the principle of restraint, which essentially says everyone deserves bail because it's a Canadian right. I'm sorry. Public safety is what we should be aiming for, not giving people rights over everyone else. That's wrong.
I do want to jump in on Ian's thing because there's a bigger point here, and I think it ties back to our last interview with you as well. We're only inspecting 1 to 3% of the sea cans coming in. But even worse, Sam Cooper put out an article that they're selling the list of the ones that are going to be inspected. So the employees or the staff there, not only at the ports may be compromised, also at Toronto Pearson Airport. We have actually people committing organized crime from within or selling information to organized crime. That in itself is to me one of the most troubling things. Not only are we not inspecting, we literally have people in positions of authority that are selling information to organized crime on both sides that are operating as organized crime. There's some serious issues there. And who's being held accountable for it and what's being done at Toronto Pearson and at the Vancouver port or any other port?
Well, this is what I was raising earlier, that Transport Canada has a very real responsibility when it comes to screening and eliminating people that are under suspicion or have broken the law. And obviously the RCMP, I have zero, like we should be throwing the book at anyone, whether they be in the public service, whether they be private citizens working at an airport that is working with organized crime or just crime in general. But the problem we have again is enforcement. Look, they are cutting the Directorate of Dangerous Goods by $7 million. Okay. They are and when we talk about 1,000 RCMP, let's be mindful that there's different types of positions for the RCMP. There's provincial, which is usually rural or having to do with motor vehicle issues. And then there's federal, which is things like we're talking about here, interprovincial, international crime. And those resources are not being made available. We've been promised more resources for British Columbia to deal with things like money laundering and the port issues for probably 6 years. I remember Bill Morneau declaring that they had a big deal with BC, that they were going to jump on this with a joint funding agreement. We don't see, from any reporter that I follow, we are not seeing those resources deployed. So we can change our laws. Look, and Conservatives will support that. Where they do make it better. But the government actually needs to do the tough stuff, which is perform. And whether it be opening up a bridge, whether it be making sure government taxpayer money is going to crown corporations that don't just gift themselves bonuses, or whether it has to do with actually putting boots on the ground and not more managers in seats that, by the way, require more bonuses. Like that is the choice the government is making. And so far, I don't understand if it's because they just don't want to get involved. Because when you start picking some of these thornier issues, you're going to bleed a little bit. But at the same token, just by keeping a hands off, we don't hear no evil, see no evil approach, it just allows evil to flourish. In this case, the ports are example number one of that.
Yeah, it's like a big point of weakness. I'm sure the Americans are looking at that too, because that report goes out there. They're reading that report, and it's like 1 to 3% is inspected, and the criminals don't even think that's acceptable to them. They want almost zero caught because they're buying lists. They're literally buying lists to make sure that even the 1% or 3% don't get caught. I mean, that is.
Well, I'm sure they're paying very close attention during our meetings on Drivers Inc. I was very surprised that we had American consulate staff attending the hearings. And if you just look at, they've made a major bust in the United States from an Ontario-based company owner that has links to organized crime and fentanyl shipments, etc. So like you're absolutely right. They are paying attention to these issues at a level I've never seen before. And one just has to hope that the government is not just heeding and using, like, look, buying leasing some so-called, and I call them so-called on purpose, Blackhawks to do surveillance. Those so-called Blackhawks, from my understanding, are former surplus that was junked. So if you were to actually phone the manufacturer and ask them about those Blackhawks, they would say those are not Blackhawks. Those are surplus that was junked and someone else is now using in the skies. Like these are the fig leaves that unfortunately this government throws. And even Transport Canada now is backing away from signing off on these things because those kinds of arrangements don't follow Transport Canada rules. And so they're finally not giving the exemptions to allow those kinds of activities for these things. So it's a huge, a massive incompetence wrapped up in an enigma or a veil of ignorance. I don't know.
I do want to get your comment on the story that Ian and I did this morning. It is, like the relationship between the United States and America and Canada is all important for our manufacturing and for, like the people working here in Canada. And we've seen that. But the bridge deal, the Davos speech and all these things, and then this appointment here that's announced yesterday of Maya Johnson, a former Democratic operative that worked in Hillary Clinton's campaign as the chief operating officer in the PMO's office, a position that never existed before. It seems like that this would also be viewed by the Americans, the Trump administration, as another kind of like slap in the face to put a high up Democratic operative into the Prime Minister's office.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that angle, Jim, but I just certainly hope that someone in the Prime Minister's office did and advised the Prime Minister of what that would mean. Because right now we are at a high stakes situation. Another manufacturer of Army kit today announced it. Yeah, and this is something that was touted by the Minister of Defense as a Canadian example of a business that can grow under the government's own defense industrial strategy. They've suddenly said we're pulling up stakes and we're moving to Poland.
And we covered that. It's just one after another. The one that we've covered, we didn't get comment from you, but the report from KPMG, I think, is an indictment of the last 11 years of policy in Canada here. It's 57% of manufacturers in this poll said that they will not invest in Canada in capital. I mean, that is such an indictment as to what's going on here with policy and regulation.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Adam Chambers on my podcast, Finding Solutions, on this very matter, and he just said, look, the uncertainty that exists right now, on the ground, people are loath to invest in Canada until they know where we're going and how that affects them. And I understand the sentiment that people say all the time that it's better to have no deal than a
Bad deal.
quick deal or a bad deal. But that I understand the rhetoric, but let's just think of what this does. And this is where you see where the government has touted its defense industrial strategy, where we're going to be competing with the Americans, the Europeans, and the Chinese and the Indian and other countries, because essentially this is geopolitical stuff. There's only a few large firms in each of these trading blocks that can do this kind of stuff. And already you see one of our manufacturers to say we can't deal with this uncertainty, and they're pulling up and they're going to a place where they can get both. Like Poland, if you look at what they've done over the past 5 to 10 years, they've completely changed their military posture, and they're obviously getting the benefits of that. And so this is where the government, I think, needs to understand that there is so those that say no deal is better than a bad deal, we also have to recognize that no deal means uncertainty, and it means that we're losing and bleeding despite the government's own proclamations that it's going to fund and going to grow the defense industry massively. Again, I was thinking this the other day. Bill Blair, the former Minister of National Defense, Bill and I have very different views politically. But one of the things I totally agreed with him and mentioned on your show was we had an opportunity to invest in our ammunition industry. And that was 3-4 years ago. And that still hasn't happened. And so we have a strategy that now says abundantly that it can happen here, but it doesn't happen. And so we have 3 days of ammunition. And that's not acceptable if from a military perspective, and it wasn't acceptable in Poland, and that's where you see them attracting manufacturers such as Woodward's.
I don't know, Dan, how many wars last more than 3 days? Right? I have one final question before I turn it to Ian. He might have some final questions for you. Obviously, we want comment from you on the bridge and being the critic there for transportation. Are we getting information as to what the concession was? Have you been provided any information? Because I know you have the information from when the original deal was done.
Well, that's the point. If this was such a win as Mr. Carney was touting in Stampede, then show us the agreement. But the fact is that both sides are claiming it's a great deal. Well, if that is the case, show us the deal. But this is my experience. In the United States, oftentimes this kind of information is considered owned by the public. In Canada, unfortunately, we have a tradition where it's considered to be secret unless disclosed by the government, and that's a political choice. But the fact that they haven't released it probably says that it is not what the Prime Minister says it is, or else you would just release it and let the facts speak for themselves.
Yeah, Ian and I have said we're likely going to get the information from the Trump administration at some point. So maybe me and Ian will have to go down there and ask for it, because I don't know if we're going to get it on this side of the border. Well,
that's the problem we have right now. We have a prime minister who believes he's the best deal maker, and yet when he makes deals, he doesn't seem to show what he's done on our behalf. That's not accountable. That's not the role of a prime minister. A prime minister, I believe, has to look after our national interest, and part of that is maintain our democratic standards. Part of that means some basic transparency. This is something I just see over and over again. Like, I know you guys are media, so please, I'm not talking about you in this. But last week I put out a tweet that basically said that every time that media runs with an announcement with zero detail of how this is going to be paid for, whether or not this is even in the fiscal framework, what they are doing is incentivizing the government to keep doing more of this. And given our aging demographics, given our desire to grow our military, and all these other things, that the government is they're spending more money than ever. And so to have on a weekly basis tens of billions of dollars of new spending announced, where everyone seems to be celebrating, but no one can actually point who's going to pay for it, and whether or not it's in the fiscal framework, that disadvantages Canadians and their representatives in Parliament, because I can't honestly tell someone how we're going to pay for it. This is the problem here: is that there are very real trade-offs. Like there's the old proverbial, you can have guns or butter, right? That is literally the choice that is before us. And I don't think the government is being transparent enough on what that looks like.
Ian?
I just want to point out that that's a startling critique, that, isn't it? You're saying as an MP, as a member of Parliament in the House of Commons, which anybody out there, if you've read about where this all comes from in England, the whole point is to approve the budget. That's literally the whole point of a Commons. And you're saying,
yes,
you don't even know how much money is being spent. I mean, that didn't even happen in the days of the old English kings. I just thought that's quite fascinating. It's worth dwelling on that. But I've got another.
So just on that point, though, Ian, my tweet was originally about an article by William Watson, where he said that MPs need more economics training. And I said, hey, great, more training is always welcome. But when you see the parliamentary budget officer say they don't have sufficient details, and private sector economists, who are literally the smartest people on economic files in Canada, saying they don't have proper scope of how these things are going to get paid, how's the average member of Parliament going to do that? And I'll tell you why this is happening. This is happening because Mr. Carney has a majority and believes that majority shields him from all criticism. And yes, people can say, well, Dan, you can point the finger, but no, this is a democracy still. It's not a technocracy. That may be something that being a technocrat may be something that Mr. Carney prefers, but he auditioned to be prime minister, not CEO of Canada. So there's a lot to be desired here. And look, I would love it if MPs had a higher fiscal and economic, training. But at the same token, I also know democracy. And if the smartest people in the room, the parliamentary budget officer, can't tell me an honest answer, I will tell you the average MP won't be able to either. And where does this fall on? Those Liberal MPs that are giving Mr. Carney a free pass on everything. So at some point, those MPs need to ask themselves, because no government will give more information than is required to get their agenda through. They have to ask themselves a very important question. Am I living up to my end of the role? And I believe me, Ian, I get frustrated at times, but I can look my constituents in the eye and say, I am trying to get you the information so we can make informed decisions on your behalf, to make full representation of the government of Canada before decisions are made. But that's just not happening right now, and it's because of that majority, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked at length about what happened with the committees and whatnot. But on that note, this is my last question, quite a sort of abstract question. I want to take you back to what you said about laws that are not being enforced and the justice system, and also what we talked about with the ports. I'm just interested in what that means. What's the sort of long-term prognosis here? Because that can't be good, I sense. My instinct tells me it can't be good for the health of our democracy if there are laws there on the books that aren't enforced. There's a justice system that a lot of people complain doesn't actually protect them. You know, it's happened in Kelowna, of course, infamously, that we've talked about a lot, but it's all over the place. Even today, one of the leading news stories is a man from whom a certain amount of drugs was seized, but the prosecution collapsed because they strip searched him, and that was deemed to have been an egregious violation of his charter rights. I mean, it's every day, isn't it? We needn't list all the examples, but does there not come a time where, you know, people just think this system doesn't work, doesn't protect me, it doesn't keep bad people away from me? Laws are there, they're written down, I can see it on the Parliament website, but it's not enforced. We don't check containers coming in our ports. However, we do have a law in place to take guns away from people, legal firearms owners, in case they do something dodgy with those guns. We don't want guns on the streets. However, theoretically, they could very easily be coming through the ports because there's nobody checking the ports. You know, like things like that. At some point, doesn't erode faith in the whole system, and I can't help but think that that could be quite dangerous eventually.
Yeah, so just two things here, and I'm going to go back to my city council days. So I used to say to people, the reason why I got into politics was just to build faith in the system, because a lot of people at the time felt that the council of the day wasn't being accountable. People were returning phone calls, basic questions about how much did that event center cost. They would just say, we're not telling. And that's not being accountable. So I ran then. And one of the things I found that oftentimes, and I would be criticized for this, is because I'd say, why have a bylaw on the books if it's not going to be enforced? To me, that's a very simple thing. And one thing I've noticed from my time at different levels of government is this. First of all, politics a lot of the time shifts with public sentiment, what the public wants, what they need, and what impacts from government policies or inaction by government. And the one thing I think that we see in the private sector, and I'm not idealizing the private sector any means there, but when you see a business model that has to change, you will see entrepreneurs that change how they do business and rethink how they do it, and they either succeed or they fail and exit the market and give that to someone else. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, with government, you want to have maintenance of order and whatnot. As a conservative, I believe that those basics are there. But one thing I don't think government has gotten very good at, and I think politicians, and I'm one of them, but I would say that the calls are coming from within the tent on this one, is governments are not very good at scaling their activities. So oftentimes, politicians, members of parliament, MLAs will get calls asking for a new law to be changed. And sometimes they're very successful at that. And if it fits in with the existing system, then roughly, if it's simply just codifying a modernized version of it, usually the police and the Crown prosecutors will have no problem. But what we have here is, and Macklin McCall is the one that raised this to me, is you have where the amount of provincial RCMP that are paid provincially has not increased since 2012, even though our population has. Crown Counsel. If you look at one of the things that I've heard over and over, during COVID, the reason why the courts ran into such big problems is because Crown Counsel weren't being supplied with video cameras so they could attend court hearings that were done online, something that the average citizen could do easily. So this is the problem. If you have ministers that are not willing to get in there and to get dirty and to take on the slings and arrows of changing the system to scale it so that it works right, get out of there. Get out. Give it to someone who wants to be there, who wants to make the changes, right? Like if you can't be effective, lead, follow, or get out of the way. And that's where I would think the biggest criticism we have today is that we can pass a law, but actually doing the heavy work, signing an MOU with a foreign country and coming back and saying, look at what we've done. Great, it's a first step. But where's the next step? Like we still have certain elements in Europe that have not ratified the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement with Europe, right? So we still have where we have producers of things like beef that their competitors have better access to Canada and the Canadian market than they have access to the European. And that trade deal was written and signed off 10 years ago. So this is my criticism: is that the end of the day, we need ministers that feel the authority, that lean into it, that get dirty, and then fix the system. And if you're not one of those, or if the Prime Minister allows his cabinet to be filled by those that aren't doing that, that's on him, and he should be accountable for it.
Hey, we get lots of comments. There's lots of comments.
A diatribe there, Ian.
I appreciate it.
There's lots of comments in here, and Ian and I talk about this all the time. And I think one of the biggest things that people are asking for, and it's kind of like that, even if you look through what we're talking about, it's accountability, and that's what you were just talking about, accountability. And that's been missing. Like the sealing of vaccine records for 15 years, like no information provided on the bridge. And I try to stress on this show all the time, that information belongs to the Canadian public. That information is part of the Canadian public. You are just the keepers of that information. Like you've been entrusted through a vote to keep that information, but it's not your information. It belongs to the Canadian public. And why do we have such a lack of accountability? And it seems to be getting worse over the years, especially in the last 11 years. Accountability and transparency has almost disappeared. It's almost everything. Committees getting shut down. And I think people really need to push back hard on this. And I say to people, if you want accountability, we have a little thing on our show, on our website, thereallybigshow.ca. At the bottom there, you can find all the MPs' address there. And you can go on there and you can start emailing them and saying, I'm as mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. I want accountability. And I want some transparency. And I also want some fiscal restraint, because Canadians can't give more than they can. Do you know what I mean? Like they continue being asked, and the people are taking it. That elitism is I think it's rampant. And that's my little speech. But I do want to ask two questions and updates for you. BC Ferries, Ian and I interviewed you a long time ago. You started that committee hearing on BC Ferries. Do you have an update on BC Ferries?
No.
There you go. And then the other update is Toronto.
I'll just say this is that the committee, if anyone just was to go back and look at the list of things the committee has agreed to work on, there's a whole host of reports that the committee has not yet processed and dealt with. It's my hope that the committee will set aside the time necessary at some juncture to draft the report. And again, the issue is still very live, even in the so-called MOU that was done with David Eby, mentioned about shipbuilding. So there's a lot of interest from BC-based shipbuilders to participate at a higher level than just what has been done under the Canadian government's naval and Coast Guard procurement process, the National Shipbuilding Program. But again, this is the thing that ultimately the committee is run by the majority. And so there's a number of things, everything from concerns around cybersecurity on airports to NAVCAN issues for the Winnipeg, Kelowna, and Vancouver, where those labor shortages are quite acute, to firefighting regulations that are desperately out of date. These are some of the issues that the committee is also seized with that we just have not been able to get to. And all I can simply say is that's my hope, in addition to the families that have been affected by Drivers Inc. And the industry that has been so damaged by Drivers Inc. And I would suggest maybe you guys might want to even interview the head of the Canadian Truckers Alliance, because I had him on my podcast, and there are so many things that have gone wrong that need attention both federally and provincially when it comes to road safety. So there's a huge list here, guys, of things that I want to see done. Unfortunately, you gotta work with what you got.
I will reach out for that contact, and thanks for that, Dan. And you always make yourself available, which is great, and we appreciate that. And that is, I think, one of the problems right now for accountability is that there's not a lot that we can get. Like, we reached out to Canada Post, at least they replied. But I mean, we can reach out till we turn blue in the face right now, and it seems like the people in power don't even want to respond by email anymore. And it gets, as they see there's no repercussions, there's the government-funded media that seems more, like the legacy media. It seems they do these kind of like softball interviews, but they don't want to come on with Ian and Jim.
Just on that point, I got to say this, because I think Canada Post, so they tried this with my committee, the Transportation Infrastructure Communities Standing Committee of the House of Commons. We asked them to come on Drivers Inc. They sent us a note saying, literally, we got this, everything is fine, and didn't even sign it. It was an unaddressed letter. And so I raised a conniption at committee, and eventually we got the CEO, after a tremendous amount of effort on behalf of the chair and clerk. And unfortunately, I was supported by all members. But like, this is the problem. If the Canada Post doesn't believe that it needs to be accountable to the committees in the House, that is because they're not expected to do so. And I think that reflects poorly on the government. One former board member of EDC, which has to do with export promotion, He told me that, especially during the financial crisis, Jim Flaherty would often go to their board meetings and explain, even though they were independent, explain what the government was trying to do and how EDC mattered and what they wanted to see from EDC as an organization to help deal with the very real threats of that financial crisis. And from my understanding, that was extraordinarily helpful to the board, knowing where they were, and how they could employ and best help Canadians. I don't think that's happening.
I do want to say to people that are listening is that you do make a difference and your vote matters, especially in concert. And we saw that with Tom Clark there, his contract being terminated there as consul in New York there with the extravagance that Ian and I talked about on the show at length here, the extravagancy, the dinners he was having and all the spending he's having, the $8.8 million condo and that. And this same thing, there needs to be pushback for these bonuses. There needs to be pushback for accountability and transparency because, again, at the end of the day, this information belongs to you, Canadians.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, but I also would say let's watch this new consul. Like we did with Mr. Clark, because what I'm afraid of is that these positions are now treated more as friends for the Prime Minister and the well-connected.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened, I believe, with Mr. Clark's case. Now people could throw stones at me and say that's not a generous way of looking at it, but these appointments are the Prime Minister's. Ultimately, the Minister of Foreign Affairs will listen to the Prime Minister on any strategic, especially one such as that appointment at this critical juncture.
Again, we're appreciative of you, Dan, that you make yourself available when we ask. It's not the same for a lot of other ones, so we're going to keep working at it too. We're going to keep pounding away like a river on a rock.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for the time today, and for the final questions, I'll take my leave now.
All right. Cheers, and we'll finish up the show as soon as Dan ducks out here. Thanks, Dan. There you go. Thanks for Dan. Dan always makes himself available, and that was like a request that was made late last night, and there he is on the show this morning, right? And then, we can send emails till we turn, I'm much larger than Ian all of a sudden. Hey, well, there you go. We can send emails till we almost turn blue in the face sometimes. And we're going to just push hard, and we're going to get more aggressive, and you can help with that too. We'll start giving you the names of the ones that we want answers to, and then you can just send follow-ups for us. We'll say, we want to talk to this MP. We've sent like 3 requests now. They're not answering. Would you like to send a request too as well that says you need to come on the Really Big Show? You need to fulfill the democratic process and hold yourself accountable to the media, because that is part of the democratic. Otherwise, we don't have a democracy. We have a king. And we have town criers. Do we want town criers where they go out in the public square and just tell you what the Prime Minister's office has to say today?
With a bell.
With the bell, yeah. You need a bell, right? And you need big boots, right? Because you need to boot the people in the face that don't cough up the taxes, right? Right? Because then they're marked, right? They got that big heel print on their forehead there. That guy probably might need a refresher. And when you ask him for the next dole of taxes, right? Is that the nation we want? Again, on Friday, we have a really good interview at noon there, so that's going to be good. And that's an American lawyer. So your Global News noon helicopter's right overhead. There you go. I don't know what that is, but hey. We do thank you, because you're the most important person. It is you. That information literally belongs to you. That information belongs to you. So let's get it. Let's get it back, right? Anyway. Thank you to everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. PST. Every morning, come rain, come shine, come sleet, whatever that is. How's that thing go? Is there a slogan there? What's that?
I mean, it's like what you just said. Yeah.
Come rain, snow, sleet, storm of night, or anything like that. We'll be back tomorrow morning, as usual. Thank you for watching The Really Big Show. Live long and prosper. And fight, fight, fight. Thanks for watching.